Chapter 186. Current mission completed. Main mission updated. When Feng Bujue received the third bottle of medicine, the game menu stated, "Find and capture Billy in the fourth corridor, and bring him to Rabbit in exchange for a bottle of chemical medicine." He had already put a tick on it. The other quest, "Find the chemical medicine, 3/4, was refreshed. Feng Bujue's shot was like killing a donkey after it had outlived its usefulness. Rabbit's head was hit by the bullet, and it exploded like a watermelon. Blood splattered everywhere, dyeing the table, the floor, the wall, and of course, Feng Bujue, who was close to him, was also dyed red. Rabbit's body that was the size of a kangaroo fell backward. It knocked over the chair and landed heavily on the ground. Its curled rabbit legs were still twitching. The time now is... Feng Bujue had lost count of how many times he had wiped away the stain on his face. 65 minutes. His eyes moved to the table. Billy the puppet had disappeared. "But you don't seem to be able to continue this act." Feng Bujue laughed. The light in the first cell came on its own and Billy appeared. He was still sitting on the chair. The light from above shone on his eerie face. "Did I make a mistake somewhere? Is it because of this one mistake from Rabbit?" "There are too many mistakes," Feng Bujue replied. "That was just my final test to confirm my suspicions." He placed the gun on the table, put his hands in his pockets, and walked slowly to the cell door. "About when I started to suspect, it should be from the beginning." "Humph, even if you've seen through my plan, don't you think you're exaggerating a bit?" Billy said. "You don't believe me? Do you not believe me, or do you not want to believe me?" Feng Bujue's tone was provocative. "After all, I still have 27 minutes before the poison kicks in. I have plenty of time to explain it to you." He walked to the side and picked up the chair next to Rabbit's body. He dragged it to the cell door and sat down across from Billy. He cleared his throat and said, "I will not repeat your opening speech in full. In any case, I believe that is a speech that you have carefully crafted. It is filled with traps and lies, and it is targeted at me personally. Just as you said later, you can indeed accurately predict people's minds. At the very least, you know how to guide the direction and process of my reasoning." He smiled. "But there is something that you shouldn't have said. You will meet some people and witness some things. What you see and hear might change your actions and interfere with your judgment." "That statement is just..." Billy wanted to interrupt. However, Feng Bujue interrupted him and continued, "Is just to make use of my reverse psychology to make me doubt that what I see is an illusion and what I hear is a lie." He paused for a second. "But you and I both know that is the truth. Your entire opening statement, at least from your point of view, was the truth. You will not lie to the players when the rules are first announced. I believe that is a kind of pride, a kind of persistence." He opened his arms and pointed at Rabbit's body. "Even when there is a need to lie, you try your best not to say it yourself. Most of the time, you will remain silent or say something ambiguous. And those deceptions will be done by a rabbit and..." Feng Bujue imagined Aldan. "And a monster that I have no idea what kind of monster it is." Out of habit, Feng Bujue used his index and middle fingers to rub his forehead and touch his nose. There is no second timeline. The 4 corridors that lead to 23, 46, and 69, and the change of time that goes forward and backward, that is all a smokescreen. He moved his face forward and tapped one of his temples with his finger. "You took advantage of my habit of solving mysteries and used a set of false rules to guide my thinking and actions. You are indeed not bad. You must have thought through my analysis. The existence of the rooms, the distribution of the potions, the length of the corridors, the time needed to cross the corridors, and so on. You know very well what information you should and should not give me. Based on your guidance, there is actually only one route that I can take." Feng Bujue raised a finger. In the fan-shaped room at the front, the performance in the first corridor was very successful. "That did confuse me for a long time. You also know that based on my thinking, after seeing that, I would have chosen to explore the other corridors first. But then, 2, 3, 4. His finger changed. No matter which route I take, it will be the same. All you need to do is adapt to the situation when you come up with the rules. No matter where I enter, you will arrange for me to run into Aldan first. The challenge of telling a ghost story was like a strange message left at a murder scene to disrupt the investigation. Using that method to send me directly to the end seemed quite normal, because the more inexplicable a situation was, the less likely it was for anyone to investigate it. When I arrived at this so-called prison, the show officially started. Ravid and Aldan's words and your appearance in the prison were all to make me believe in your theory of time in the corridor. This way, to not create a space-time paradox and to avoid the 92 minutes on the map, I only had one choice left: turn back from the second corridor, return from the fourth corridor, and then return to the first corridor. That is what you want me to do, and it is the only path that Ravid's theory points to. Fong Bujue turned around to look at the first corridor. To put it more directly, you want me to use the gun that you gave me, enter the first corridor, and kill someone behind the door without hesitation. He then looked at Billy. According to your calculations, I should only have one contra medal left at that time, not the 2 I have now. I already had 3 bottles of potions and was about to pass the test. Coupled with the scene you showed me at the beginning, it was like a ticking time bomb buried in my head. At the last moment, with my personality, I have to admit that even if I die, I will try my best to reverse that scene. He pointed at the gun on the table. In any case, based on the plot that you imagined, I will enter the first corridor, open the door, and kill everything that appears before me. Billy's attitude at this point was a different kind of calmness. Since you've come to this conclusion, why don't you try to guess why I'm doing this? It's very simple. You want to escape from prison, right? Fong Bujue asked. He was right. Billy raised his head slightly, and he was speechless. I believe this whole space that we're in is a prison. Fong Bujue scanned the 4 cells before him. These 4 cells are just decorations. He used his finger to tap on the iron bars of the cell door. Since we're at this point, let's talk about a few obvious flaws. As soon as I saw SCP-173, I was certain that the rabbit was lying. It said that the 4 prisoners were originally locked up here. But why would the cell that holds SCP-173 be locked up with a door? He joked. Don't tell me an unblinking puppet like you is responsible for staring at SCP-173 through the bars all year round? Furthermore, both Aldan and SCP-173 have the ability to teleport. What's the point of the length of these corridors? Fong Bujue continued. Also, you had Ravid claim to be Sam Montier's replacement. That was definitely a mistake. When you're in the same room, your presence and pressure are twice his. Do you think he'll be able to keep an eye on you? Fong Bujue shook his head and scoffed. From how I see it, the Real prison guard is guarding the entrance to this space, and the door to this prison is inside the first corridor. He opened his palm and pointed at Billy. Your ability to manipulate space is undeniable. I believe the length of these corridors and all the changes in the rooms are within your control. How long it will take me to run down the corridor and how long it will take me to run into a room is also within your control. But you and your subordinates, or rather, your cellmates, have arranged such a show, created so many complicated rules, created so many psychological clues, controlled the information I obtained, and patiently set up this trap, just to make me do something so simple? You gave me the gun, Aldan has the finger to pull the trigger, and Ravid can try as well, so why didn't you do it yourselves? Fong Bujue crossed his legs. Initially, my deduction was, that door, none of you should be able to open it, or even touch it or get close to it. He smiled, a wicked smile. But now that I think about it, I realize, Fong Bujue did not share the basis of his deduction. His basis was actually the plot introduction. Overlapping space, a game of death, endless terror, a recurring nightmare. This was a hint given by the system at the start of the scenario and not spoken by an NPC or a boss. Those 4 sentences were the real key to unlocking the secret of this scenario. The phrase, overlapping time and space, coincided perfectly with Billy's scam. In a way, it had confused Fong Bujue, but at that moment, after taking out the information from these 4 sentences, Fong Bujue understood everything. You've done this many times already, haven't you? Fong Bujue laughed. After you kill the prison guard, you can't escape, right? Is that so funny? Billy asked. Then tell me, why isn't it funny? Fong Bujue asked. Killing the prison guard will not only prevent us from escaping, but it will also trigger a recurring phenomenon, Billy replied. The power that Ravid, Aldan, and I have recovered, especially our control over space and time, will return to the starting point like time has been rewound, and only our memories will remain. The SCP-173 that you mentioned, I have no idea what its name is. It is not our cellmate but part of the punishment. Every time we kill our way out of the prison, we'll be reincarnated and encounter a brand new monster like 173 in the prison. We'll be tortured and killed countless times, until our strength recovers and we're strong enough to control the prison again. So, you wish to borrow my power to break this recurring phenomenon? Fong Bujue asked. Chapter 187. Yes. Aldan suddenly appeared behind Fong Bujue. Since things have come to this, I might as well be frank with you, Billy said. If you don't cooperate, the poison will take effect and cause you to fail the scenario. I know for you travelers from another world, this is not a big price to pay, but it is still something that you don't want to see. Then what about Ravid? Fong Bujue asked. I killed your friend with 1 shot, and you're going to let me go just like that? Billy said, Don't worry, you didn't really kill it. That gun is just an extension of my control over this space. The moment you pulled the trigger, I changed its nature. That bullet won't be able to kill Labit. But it will hurt, another voice said. Fong Bujue turned his head toward the source of the voice. The voice came from the second cell. Although Ravid's headless body was still lying on the ground, its unique voice could be heard in the darkness. Oh, I see. Fong Bujue turned the chair around and placed his feet on the table. He said casually, Let me think about it. You can use this time to talk to me about things that interest me. You don't have much time, Billy said. Fong Bujue shook his head with a smile. You don't have much time, do you? He glanced at the menu. The 92-minute poison in my body was not given to me by you but a setting imposed by a higher existence. He was referring to the system. Before it, you're nothing more than life forms that can be wiped out with a single thought. So what? The existence that you're talking about is more disciplined than the master of time. It won't do something like this without a reason, Aldan replied. I'm not hinting that the existence will wipe you out, but even you won't be able to stop that existence from wiping me out. Fong Bujue said. At least there's one thing that you can't lie about. The 3 of you really only have 3 bottles of medicine. That's right. The 4th bottle is with Faust, Billy replied. This Faust. Is he the prison guard here? Fong Bujue asked. Yes. Then you're talking nonsense. Fong Bujue directly exposed him. How do you know if he has the medicine or not? Did he come in and tell you? Billy was speechless. He really didn't know if the 4th potion was in Faust's hands. He only said that to urge Fong Bujue to get rid of him. But it can also be said that your speculation is reasonable because the 4th bottle of potion is obviously not in this space. Otherwise, it would have fallen into your hands long ago. Fong Bujue changed the topic and asked, By the way, when did the potions on you appear? Before you entered this space, we each received a bottle of potion and found out about your situation and the effect of the potion, Aldan answered. Feng Bujue thought, is it a method to directly feed them the relevant data? Other than that, the short 10 seconds it took for me to generate the scenario felt like a long time for them. Without the presence of the players, the calculation speed of these scenario worlds seems to be much faster. Let me start from the beginning. Feng Bujue stretched his body lazily on the chair. This moment of relaxation was a kind of relaxation that came when he was trying to organize his thoughts. Before I entered this prison, you had already finished weaving the space, and the layout had been planned. Everything was ready. When I appeared, Billy used the broadcast to communicate with me at the starting point. When I reached the fan-shaped room at the front, you showed me a wonderful performance. This illusion was... He paused and looked at Billy and Aldan with a questioning gaze. I created it. It was Rabbit who answered him in the second cell. Haha, good job. Feng Bujue praised it. Then, I entered the third corridor and met Aldan. Then, I came to the end. I met Rabbit again and saw Billy in the cell. The three of you are deliberately mystifying me, limiting my next path, and making it seem like I came up with this choice myself. Then, I came to the second corridor and met SCP-173. The one who locked it up was me, Billy answered. After you shattered it, it was me who caused the potion to appear on the ground. Looks like you can not only adjust the space but also control the objects here. Feng Bujue said. There is a question. Why didn't you kill SCP-173 but lock it up? Whenever we kill one of these creatures, after 24 hours, another one will be released, Billy replied. And every time, the species is different. Some of them are very scary. That face, that voice, and the fact that he had used such a hurt tone to describe them as terrifying, it was not hard to imagine. These punishment creatures that were thrown into prison were indeed very difficult to deal with. That 173 is one of the easier ones to control. It's not that difficult to imprison him. It's easier to imprison him than to kill him. Yes, there was one time when an old man who looked like a mummy came in. He could use the ability to create space to perform short-distance interdimensional jump. Physical damage was basically useless against him. When he hid in the dimension hole, we couldn't do anything. In the end, Billy could only create a large, complicated, and randomly arranged building to trap him while we went around him to kill Faust, Rabbit added. That sounds like SCP-106, Feng Bujue mumbled. However, he did not continue the topic. Instead, he continued his story. After I dealt with the second corridor, I was actually quite suspicious of your explanation. However, with the situation at the time, I did not want to take the risk of causing a spacetime paradox. I also did not want to expose my plan because of my abnormal actions, so I followed your plan and entered the fourth corridor. Feng Bujue looked at Billy. And you moved from this cell to the fourth corridor and interacted with me as if nothing had happened. The game looked difficult, but when I actually tried it, you allowed me to obtain the potion easily. Was my action unnecessary? Billy asked. Actually, not at all. Feng Bujue said. If you know my character, you should know that your action was beneficial to all of us. He paused for a moment. By the way, can you clean the gasoline and blood off my body now? Before he finished, there was a strange glint in Billy's eyes, and the discomfort on Feng Bujue's body disappeared instantly. Even the gasoline that was stuck to his skin evaporated completely. Thank you. Feng Bujue thanked him politely and continued, Your original plan was for me to die in the pool of gasoline after discovering the potion and use up a medal. Then, you would teleport me to the end of the corridor. That way, the game's difficulty and process would be more realistic. However, what you didn't expect was that I, who didn't know how to swim at all, would come out before the floor closed. Therefore, the time I caught you was a few minutes earlier than you expected. To match your time theory, you had no choice but to extend the second half of the fourth corridor. Took me 18 minutes to reach the end. After you reached the end, You purposely didn't mention the word potion and pretended to be in a hurry to bait me into revealing my weakness. At this point, the light in the second cell came on. He appeared in one piece inside the cell, and the body on the ground had disappeared. I have one more thing to confirm, Feng Bujue said. The reason you gave me the medal is to prevent me from being killed by 173? Actually, as long as you don't die from the poison, we can revive you as many times as we want, Billy said. But if that happens, you will question the nature of this game, and you will definitely investigate the reason behind it. Therefore, you materialized the resurrection power, limited the number, and gave it to me. Feng Bujue nodded lightly. He placed his index finger below his lips and said, "All right, I think I have understood everything now." He took his feet off the table and sat upright. "I'm very sorry that your complicated and thorough plan to induce people has failed, but I can still help you." When the three prisoners heard this, their bodies froze. Their expressions were not very expressive, but if they had human faces, their eyes would be glowing. "I have two conditions if you can fulfill them." Feng Bujue raised two fingers. "You help me and I'll help you." "Conditions?" Aldan repeated. He seemed a little surprised. "Of course. Even though I'm not a member of the Order faction, once I help you today, it means that I've become the enemy of the Master of Time," Feng Bujue said seriously. "The amount of risk one takes is determined by the amount of reward one can get. If you don't wish to negotiate with me, I don't mind. But you have to consider who will be more unwilling to part ways with me. Go ahead." Billy was obviously the one in charge of this. He was not only the brains but also the one with the strongest abilities. When it came to negotiating, he spoke with determination. "The first condition." Feng Bujue's eyes scanned their faces. "Please tell me honestly, the three of you, or rather, I don't mean to offend you, but why are you three monsters locked up here? Also, what the hell is the Master of Time? Why do you want to know about this?" Billy asked. "Our existence and past don't mean much to you travelers from another world, right? Then, all the more reason you should tell me these unimportant things," Feng Bujue replied. "And be thankful that the first condition is so simple." Billy hesitated for about 10 seconds. In this period of time, he used a method that Feng Bujue did not know about to communicate with Ravid and Aldan. Then he said, "The Master of Time is one of the 4 pillars of divinity. All the territories in time and space are under his rule." "The 4 pillar gods are?" Feng Bujue really liked to get information from NPCs. "The Master of Time controls the River of Order. The leader of demons rules the land of chaos. The king of the nether abyss rules the kingdom of the dead. The court of truth judges good and evil," Billy replied. "These words have been spread throughout the various worlds. Every ghost, monster, demon, or god who is slightly more mainstream knows about it." You can continue." At this moment, Feng Bujue was like those high-level ghosts and demons. He memorized these 4 sentences deeply in his mind. Billy continued, "For a long time, the 4 pillar gods have kept each other in check and maintained a balance. They consciously avoided conflict and conflict between each other. War is something that none of them want to see because none of them have the confidence to win against the other side. If 2 gods start a war, the 3rd and 4th sides are unknown. Even though this prison is under the rule of the Master of Time, it is the court of truth that judges us. My core power is to control space, Aldan is to control fear, and Ravid is to control illusions. Aldan and I were accused of spreading chaos and were locked up here. Ravid was imprisoned because of something else." Hearing the unnatural pause, Feng Bujue immediately asked, "What is it?" He and his cousin were originally part of the jury, but they were convicted for contempt of court," Billy replied. "Then what about your cousin? Locked in another prison?" Feng Bujue asked again. "In the court they couldn't catch my cousin at all," Ravid said. "You mean, A rabbit managed to escape from an organization called the Court of Truth? Feng Bujue asked with a smile. Rabbit shrugged. My cousin can escape from anywhere. He only needs to draw a black hole on the wall and crawl into it. Ha ha ha. Feng Bujue's lips twitched as he laughed drily. It was Billy who pulled the topic back on track. Before Faust, our prison guard was indeed Sam Montier. Before he betrayed the Master of Time, he released the three of us. It was during that time that you and I met once. Actually, it was only 5 or 6 days ago, Feng Bujue replied. That's for you, Billy said. He continued. Sam Montier was not able to escape for long before he was captured by the Master of Time. He soon gave up our location and was spared the death penalty. I heard that he was later exiled to Devil's Chomp Island, and we were locked up again. The prison guard was changed to Faust, and our sentence was increased by several times. The time in this prison is indefinite. It is longer than anywhere else. Perhaps you think that we met 5 or 6 days ago, but for me, the nightmare of reincarnation in this prison has been going on for at least a year or more. Feng Bujue digested the information and combined the events at the Maze of Shadows with the events at Hunter's Island. He realized that the timing did match. The fake general, Rainsford, whom he met in the Hunter's Island scenario, had probably drifted to Devil's Island for some unknown reason and was taken in by Sam Montier, who was imprisoned there. Okay, it sounds like you're not lying. Feng Bujue licked his lips and started his second condition. Then, my second condition is... He patted his chest and pointed at the gun on the table. After this is done, I want the remaining 2 contra medals and the 1-hit kill pistol to leave this space. Chapter 188. I can't do it, Billy answered. Billy replied decisively. He really couldn't do it, and he didn't think that lying about being able to do it would solve the problem. Feng Bujue had predicted that there would be a negative answer. He had made this request as a negotiation tactic. In this kind of unequal partnership, the party with the advantage could raise the price as high as possible and then lower it gradually to test the other party's bottom line. Why? Feng Bujue asked. This gun is an extension of my power. Once it leaves my control area, it will disappear, Billy replied. Billy replied, because I've been in this reincarnation for a long time, my power is very compatible with this space. That's why you're able to walk around the prison with a gun. If you're in an unfamiliar environment, if you carry the gun 100 meters away from me, it will disappear. He paused for half a second before adding, in addition, the so-called one-hit kill and sure-hit effects are, to put it bluntly, the adjustments I made using my spatial ability. Because I can very carefully control the matter in the space, the destructive power and hit rate of the bullet are all under my control. That's not right. That Faust was guarding outside the prison, right? Even though it was just a door away, it was still considered outside. If I follow your original plan and walk into the first corridor after a series of misdirection and run into that guy, wouldn't I be holding a gun that has lost its effectiveness? Billy cut him off. Of the 3 of us, only my power is higher than Faust's. Therefore, it doesn't matter if you step out of the prison. As long as I stay close to you, I can still give the gun enough damage. Other than that, the so-called outside isn't the real outside. The area where Faust is at can be seen as a whole as the door, and the spell of the Master of Time is the most secure lock. Oh, I see. But, the gun was created by your power, and I only pulled the trigger. Does that really count as me killing him? Feng Bujue asked. What's important isn't the method, tool, or source of power used to kill Faust. What's important is who launched that fatal attack. Billy replied, Black magic users borrow the power of the ancient demon king when they chant. Elemental magic users borrow the power of nature. Then, should the descendants of those who were killed by these offensive spells seek revenge from the spellcasters, the demon king, or the whole world? I understand. Feng Bujue replied. In short, I will do it, right? He looked up. And if you kill Faust, you'll be reincarnated, and Faust will revive outside the door, right? Aldan continued, that's right. The spell cast by the Master of Time is extremely vicious. If the prisoner killed the warden, everything would return to its original state. Faust will appear outside the door again, and our power will drop to a very low level. It will take a long time for us to recover to our current state. Before that, this space is completely out of our control. We can't find a way out, we can't change the environment, and we can't teleport. After every reincarnation, new monsters will be thrown in to kill us. Before we grow, we'll be killed many times. The sad thing is, in prison, we can't even die. After we're killed, we'll return to our weakest state and revive. Hearing that, Fong Bujua turned to look at Ravid. Ravid knew what he wanted to ask, so he said, "There's no need to look at me. Billy already said that he adjusted the power of the bullet at the last moment, so your shot didn't really kill me. Of course, the way I escaped did look quite pathetic. So, even if I really killed you, it wouldn't have mattered?" Fong Bujua asked. "How could it not have mattered? Didn't Aldan just say that after we're killed, we'll return to our weakest state, and it'll take many days for our power to recover?" Ravid replied. "By the way, have you tried to use monsters like SCP-173 to kill Faust?" Fong Bujua asked. "Of course," Billy replied. "Even though those monsters are hard to control and pose a threat to us even at our strongest state, we still manage to lure one or two of them close to the prison door. However, once those monsters leave the door, they'll disappear, and a new one will be sent in." "Oh." Fong Bujua nodded and said, "Okay, back to my condition. I can't take the gun away, but what about the contrametal?" "It's the same logic. Like I said, I have absolute control over the space inside this prison. As long as you're not transported away because of the poison, I can resurrect you as many times as I want," Billy said. "But if you leave this place, then what's there to talk about?" Fong Bujua cut him off. "If there aren't enough benefits, why would I go against the Master of Time for your sake? You're not even my relatives, so why should I help you break out of this prison? Don't you want to clear this?" Billy's words were cut off. Fong Bujua cut him off. "That's my goal from the start, but after learning about this prison," he made air quotes with his hand, "I think it's not worth it to work with you." He pretended to be relaxed and said, "I'd rather be poisoned and fail the level than go against the Master of Time for a few people who tried to set a trap for me." He paused for a moment and added shamelessly, "Especially when there's no reward." "Okay." Billy hesitated for a few seconds before saying, "Wait a minute." Then, there was about a minute of silence. Billy, Aldan, and Ravid appeared to be communicating mentally. Since it was hard to tell anything from their faces, Fong Bujua decided to ignore them. He acted like he was not afraid of anything, like it did not matter that he had failed the scenario. He waited for their response. Even though it's very difficult, we can try to create a contrametal that you can use when you leave this prison," Billy finally said. "How do you do that?" Fong Bujua asked. "Actually, it's not that complicated," Aldan said. Aldan added, "With the three of us working together, we can create a metal that can be used outside of this prison." Fong Bujua thought about it for a few seconds. "That's the biggest benefit you can give me? You have to understand that with limited time, it's extremely difficult to create something like that. It might even shake the foundation of our power," Billy said. "If you can't even accept this, then, okay, I accept." Fong Bujua cut in before Labit could say anything else. "Give me the metal first, and then I'll accompany you to kill Faust." "That's not right," Labit said. "What if you take the metal and leave? Since I can get the metal and clear the prison, why would I choose to take the metal and leave?" Fong Bujua retorted. "Killing Faust is as easy as lifting a finger. I only need to take the gun you guys created, aim at the target and pull the trigger, right?" He looked at Billy. In comparison, I should be wary of you guys. What if I help you get rid of Faust first, and you guys, who are free from reincarnation, destroy the potion in Faust's hands or kill me directly? Feng Bujue said as he raised 3 fingers. Then, 1. I won't get anything from you. 2. I'll be on the Master of Time's blacklist for no reason. And 3. I still won't clear the prison. He shook his head and said, furthermore, even if you give me the medal first, I can't rule out the possibility that after I help you, you'll kill me to vent your anger. That way, I still won't get anything. In conclusion, the risk I'm taking is obviously greater, so if I don't get the medal, I won't do it. Chapter 189. When there were 16 minutes left before the poison took effect, Feng Bujue obtained the contra-medal that was modified by Billy, Aldan, and Ravid. The effect of the item had not changed, but the option of "can you bring it out of the scenario" had been changed to yes, and there was only 1 medal. After getting the benefit, Feng Bujue was satisfied. He picked up the one-shot kill pistol from the table and said, I have one more thing to confirm. What if, and I mean what if, I'm killed by Faust once I leave the door, this medal will come into effect and revive me, right? Yes, as long as you have this medal, whether you're inside or outside the door, inside or outside the prison, even if you're in the territory of the other 4 pillars of divinity, once you die, the medal will come into effect and revive you on the spot, Ravid replied. Billy added, don't worry. When you open the door, we'll go out with you. We'll help you block Faust's attack. All you have to do is point your gun at him and pull the trigger. I'll give this gun the maximum damage. 1 bullet will be enough to finish him off. Aldan added, after you kill him, you take the potion and teleport away, and we'll escape from the cycle of reincarnation and escape the prison. Billy said, then we'll go our separate ways and mind our own business. We don't owe each other anything. Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking. Feng Bujue smiled and concluded. Even though at the beginning, you tricked me into taking action, I believe that was because we didn't know each other and didn't trust each other. Now that we've confirmed our goals, we've come to a win-win deal. Judging from your words and deeds, I believe that you are all very honest, noble, and honorable people. You won't do the kind of thing I hypothesized before, right? Enough, stop wasting time. Ravid grumbled impatiently. Are you a victim? We don't have much time left, and you've received your reward. Hurry up and do what you're supposed to do. No problem, I'll move out now. Feng Bujue turned around and was surprised to find that the entrances to the 4 corridors had all disappeared and were replaced by a wall. In the middle of the wall was a door. Don't be surprised. The appearance and size of the space is just a form. Billy's voice was heard as the iron door of the cell creaked open. Feng Bujue turned his head and realized that the puppet was already sitting on a small tricycle at some point in time. It was stepping on the pedals as it slowly came to his side. Ravid also came out from the second cell. He and Aldan looked at Feng Bujue, waiting for this traveler from another world to open the door. Feng Bujue glanced at the 3 of them, shrugged, and walked forward. The door opened, and 1 man and 3 monsters entered in a single file, entering a very monotonous gray space. Faust stood about 10 meters away from the door. He looked like a man in ancient Roman armor. His armor, skin, pupils, and hair were all gray like cement. If he did not turn his neck to look at them, he would have looked no different from a statue. Just as I expected, Faust said, Traveler from another dimension, you're siding with the prisoners, aren't you? Hearing this, Feng Bujue immediately guessed many things. So, you're like the others. Before I came to the prison, you already received the potion and knew about my condition? That's right, Faust replied. I guessed that you would side with them. With your power, it's impossible for you to snatch the potion from them and find the door. He paused. So, no matter what you went through in the prison, when you came to me, you were definitely my enemy. I'm glad you understand. Feng Bujue raised his gun. His eyes were murderous, and his grip on the gun was firm. Bang! The gunshot rang out. Labit was shot in the head again. Other than Feng Bujue, everyone else was shocked. Even Faust asked internally, "What's going on?" After killing Ravid at such a close distance, Feng Bujue did not stop. He turned his gun back to Billy. This time, he kept firing, and he fired several bullets. Amidst his shock and anger, Billy reacted quickly. He immediately made the gun in Feng Bujue's hand disappear, and the trajectory of the bullets changed. Even so, the distance was too close, and Billy's physical skill was almost zero. Furthermore, Feng Bujue's betrayal came out of nowhere. Therefore, Billy was shot in the right side of his stomach, and he was injured. "You!" Billy muttered angrily, "Aldan, kill!" Before he could finish, a wave of evil energy spread out from Feng Bujue's body. This scene was enough to make a monster of Billy's level go silent. "Humph, it seems like the activation was successful," Feng Bujue sneered. The instant the pistol disappeared, he had already activated his only killing move. Evil King's Black Dragon Flame Wave. Feng Bujue's sorcery mastery was E, so the success rate of activating this skill was 40%. However, due to the buff from the alchemist's determination, the success rate of activating all his active skills would increase by 10%. To put it simply, the success rate was 50-50. A wave of black evil energy spread out from Feng Bujue's right arm and covered his entire body. His body was surrounded by a wave of energy, and the Black Dragon Flame Blast was about to be unleashed. This was the strongest profound of the Fiend King's Flame Kill Fist. Before the move was made, the dragon didn't move, but it already had the momentum of a storm. Putting aside the level of the user, just the power of the move itself was absolutely unparalleled. Feng Bujue spread his legs apart, and he got into a horse stance. His left hand pressed on his right shoulder, and his right arm straightened. His 5 fingers curled into a palm. With a dragon's roar, a black dragon formed from energy materialized. It opened its maw and swallowed the wooden puppet on the tricycle. This skill was fast, powerful, and it was used for tracking. Before Billy could use it, he was stunned by the evil energy and could not escape. Even Aldan, who was standing beside him, could not move. "Your item, Contra Metal, has been consumed." This time, he had really used up the metal. The Black Dragon Wave consumed 100% life points. The skill that was activated at such a price was indeed shocking. Billy, who had already been tricked, was unable to defend himself, and he was blasted into nothingness. After Feng Bujue killed Billy, he was swallowed by the black flames as well, but he immediately revived on the spot. With a smug look, he looked at Aldan, who was the last of the 3, and said, "Before you charge at me in anger." He slowly retreated and shamelessly stood beside Faust. "You'd better consider your current situation," he smiled. "I remember Billy said that of the 3 of you, only he can defeat Faust in his strongest state. So, if I were you, I wouldn't have come here to die for nothing. I would have chosen to return to the prison in your current state and be prepared to welcome a monster that will soon enter the prison." Faust seemed to have understood the situation. He turned to look at Feng Bujue and said sincerely, "You sure are cunning. You've fooled, deceived, and used us." Aldan hissed through gritted teeth. "It was you who did this to me first, wasn't it?" Feng Bujue said, "But you were not good enough, so you failed. And I have shown you the right way to do it. You used the gun and metal that we gave you to deal with us. You are indeed honest and noble people. During the negotiation, you revealed everything that I wanted to know, like your power, the theory behind these items, and the comparison of your power with Faust." Feng Bujue added, "And you even gave me the things that I wanted so that I had the confidence to carry out this plan. You dirty, despicable, evil." Even when Aldan was scolding, he was very particular about the accuracy of his words. It appeared that he was not programmed to swear. "That's enough, Aldan." Faust cut him off. The hatred between you and this traveler from another dimension has nothing to do with me. But I have my duty. Now I order you to return to your cell, or I'll have to send you back myself. Aldan's blue eyes dimmed. His gaze lingered on Feng Bujue for a long time, like he wanted to carve this man's image into his mind forever. About 10 seconds later, he retreated into the cell, and the door closed behind him. Phew! Seeing Aldan leave, Feng Bujue let out a long sigh of relief. As he took a second breath, he turned to Faust and said, "Excuse me, the bottle of unknown chemical potion in your hand." "Understood, understood." Faust extended his hand and handed the potion to Feng Bujue. When Feng Bujue accepted the item, he received a system notification. Main mission progress updated. Find the chemical potion 4/4. Current mission completed. Main mission updated. The new mission in the game menu was, mix the unknown chemical potions, A, B, C, and D into an antidote to neutralize the toxin. The system voice paused for 2 seconds before continuing. Do you wish to combine a specific mission item? Feng Bujue clicked confirm on the menu that popped up before him. The other 3 potions in his inventory disappeared instantly, and the potion that he was holding dissolved into white light. After the data was reorganized, it turned into a new item, antidote. Feng Bujue did not drink the potion immediately. Instead, he turned to Faust and said, "I say, big brother, I helped you with this prison break. Aren't you going to thank me for that?" As he said that, he lifted his head to look at Faust. However, the prison guard before Feng Bujue froze. Upon closer inspection, Faust really did turn into a statue. "You didn't help me with anything. You only helped yourself." Faust's voice came from another direction. Feng Bujue turned around and saw another Faust glowing in silver light walking towards him. "It doesn't matter which side you're on. They won't be able to escape," Faust said. "They'll just come here again and again to kill the clay dolls I made." "You?" Feng Bujue's expression shifted slightly. "I get it now. There is no such thing as a spell from the Master of Time. From the beginning, it has been you who has been playing tricks here." "Humph, of course." Faust laughed coldly. "Why would the Master allow a prison guard who is weaker than the prisoners to guard the prison?" He walked to Feng Bujue and continued, "This clay doll is made from a special magical material." Faust patted the gray sculpture that looked exactly like him. "Of course, I'm not weaker than Billy. In a one-on-one fight, they're no match for me. However, if the 3 of them work together, it'll be troublesome. So you set a trap." Feng Bujue took a few steps forward and tilted his head to look at the gray sculpture of Faust. "Whoever kills this clay doll will have their powers taken away, right?" Faust's gaze followed Feng Bujue closely. As Feng Bujue moved, Faust also turned his body slightly so that his back was facing the prison door. "Actually, it doesn't matter who kills the clay doll. As long as the clay doll is destroyed, everyone in the door space will have their powers taken away," Faust said. "So, I've always been outside this space, controlling the clay doll remotely to fight with them. They naively believe that the clay doll is me. Every time they kill the clay dolls, their strength will return to a very weak state. This way, the real me can easily send them back to their prison cells from the shadows. After a few times, they will naturally be confused by this phenomenon." Feng Bujue followed the man's lead and added, "That's right," Faust added, "so I came up with this so-called reincarnation theory. I told them that this is the spell of the Master of Time. No matter how many times they kill me, it's useless. They'll only enter a new reincarnation." He shrugged. "I used this method to solve the problem of their frequent escapes. As for the other work here, it's relatively easy. All I need to do is throw a monster in at the right time to ensure that something will accompany them." Feng Bujue licked his lips. "Looks like you're quite good at being cunning." "Are you mocking me?" Faust snorted. I'm still lacking compared to you when it comes to deception. Hee. Ha 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 ha. Feng Bujue threw his head back and guffawed like a madman. Suddenly, the laughter stopped and a sinister smile appeared on his face. No, it's not just lacking, it's far from it. At that moment, Faust's expression froze. He felt a bone-piercing chill coming from many parts of his body. He looked down and saw balls of black shadow had wrapped around his neck, wrists, knees, and other body parts. You'd better not move. Your blood is flowing in my veins. Aldan's voice rang in Faust's ears. At the same time, the creaking sound of the tricycle came from behind him. Billy rode his tricycle up to Faust. He lifted his gloomy face and calmly asked, "Have you ever been kicked by a furry animal with its hind legs?" Wah! When Faust heard this question, he sensed something and turned around. He saw a rabbit jump 2 meters into the air and spin in the air. It used its thick rabbit hind leg to kick Faust's face. It howled, "Duh!" Chapter 190. Labit's leg landed squarely on Faust's face, and a silver liquid spurted out from Faust's mouth and nose, along with 2 of his silver teeth. Compared to the physical pain, Faust was more concerned about the question in his mind. Why? Cough. Faust spat out the blood in his mouth. His eyes widened as he looked at Feng Bujue in shock. What is going on? Just now, you clearly gave them. Of course it was an act for you, Feng Bujue said. Impossible, Ravid's illusion, Faust only managed to finish half of his sentence. Ravid cut him off. That was the real body. He rubbed his feet on the ground as he said, I know you can tell the difference between an illusion and a real person, but you've never seen me use an illusion on the real body, right? Ravid said as he made a throat-slitting gesture with his rabbit claw. A gash appeared on his neck and blood gushed out like a waterfall. If you want to see, I can show you the illusion of my heart being ripped out. Before he could finish, the image he created disappeared into thin air. The wound and the blood all disappeared without a trace. What you saw just now was just a harmless bullet flying toward my face, and I immediately created the illusion of my head being blown up. Billy's wound is the same. One of your mistakes was your overconfidence in the mud puppet's trick. Every time, you easily let them kill the mud puppet. That's why you only have a rough understanding of their abilities. Feng Bujue continued, if you had been more careful in the past when you controlled the mud puppet from afar, you would have known more about the 3 prisoners, especially the details and changes of their abilities during battle. You brought this upon yourself, Billy said. Billy said, after we were deceived by your tricks several times, you said the so-called Time Master's incantation. From then on, you became even more careless in our attempts to escape. Often, you would only put up a token resistance before you were easily killed. He paused for a moment. I did wonder why a new warden like you would be so much weaker than Samontier. Unfortunately, I was fooled by your spell, Faust said. Did you plan this carefully before you came in? It can't be considered thorough, Feng Bujue said in a relaxed tone. This is not a particularly complicated performance. I was just giving it a try, and that's why I came up with this suggestion. As it turned out, I was right. Of course, even if I wasn't right, we wouldn't lose anything. We would just be putting on an act for nothing. If everything is as you say, they'll come in later, give me the gun, and then I'll shoot you. 10 minutes ago, Feng Bujue glanced at the 3 people beside him, shrugged, and walked forward. He reached the prison gate in a few steps, and his hand was already on the door handle. But just as he was about to push the door open, he suddenly stopped. He froze deep in thought. Hey! What's wrong now? Are you done? Ravid yelled. No. Feng Bujue's eyes flashed with something. You've been tricked. What? Do you want to take the reward and… Ravid's voice rose. Shut up. Billy stopped him and said in a probing tone, he's referring to something else. Feng Bujue let go of the door handle and turned back to the big table. The reincarnation, that you mentioned is indeed possible, but it's triggered by killing Faust every time. That's not right. It's normal to have the ability to revive infinitely in a specific space. Even you can, Aldan said. I'm not saying that there's a problem with him being able to revive. Feng Bujue denied and interrupted. If it's the Master of Time's spell, why didn't he set the effect to trigger the reincarnation when any of you walk out of the door? He glanced at the three. That might cause internal strife. He pointed at the door. Why did he set it so that the reincarnation will only be triggered after Faust is killed? When the warden is alive, the warden is relied on to guard the prisoners. When the warden dies, the reincarnation will be triggered. Isn't that logical? Aldan asked. Feng Bujue laughed. If the warden is stronger than you, then of course it's logical. He turned to look at Billy. But the reality is that Billy alone has the ability to kill Faust. If the two of you work together, I'm sure you'll be able to kill him. Billy said, You're saying, it was Faust himself who told you about the reincarnation theory, right? Feng Bujue asked. Yes, it was him, Billy replied. Before Faust became your warden, did you know his power? Feng Bujue asked. How does he compare to Sam Montier? Even though we haven't fought before, everyone knows that Faust is second only to the 12-hour men. Billy thought about it and said, Sam Montier used to be the 10th of the 12-hour men. When he was in charge of the prison, there were no monsters, and there was no reincarnation. The three of us stayed in the small cells. It was impossible to fight back. Even if we worked together and ambushed him, we wouldn't be able to defeat Sam Montier. Feng Bujue crossed his arms before his chest and nodded. Then that settles it. If the person sent by the Master of Time to take over the job of the warden is not up to the task, why would he send him here? Wouldn't it be easier to just cast a spell? He raised his head. Since Faust is here, it means that the Master of Time has acknowledged his ability to keep an eye on you. But Faust's method of keeping an eye on you doesn't rely on pure power. He has his own way. Feng Bujue pursed his lips. Plus, is there really such a spell? From my perspective as a visitor from another dimension, if there really is such a spell, the Master of Time would just put an aggressive pig at the door. Why would he put a guard there? Therefore, Feng Bujue raised one finger, I believe that Faust is the one who made up the spell. Then why? Ravid wanted to ask. To save time, Feng Bujue said, I have a plan. Listen to it. It was less than 10 minutes since Feng Bujue's poison took effect. Of course, I have my own selfish motives. Feng Bujue continued to speak to Faust. Although I believe that the remaining potion should be with you, I am not sure if I will get the item after killing you. So, I have to think of a way to trick you into getting the potion. The possibility of negotiating with you is very low. You said it yourself. According to your deduction, when I opened the prison door and came here, I would definitely be your enemy. Your deduction is correct, but if I knew it beforehand, I could use it to my advantage. I already got a lot of information from Billy and the others. I know that when you got the potion, you already had information about me and used it to make guesses about my abilities and actions. Since you already believe that I will cooperate with the three of them, I will put on a show of betrayal in front of you and subvert your point of view. Seeing it with your own eyes is more convincing than any word. That's why I even used a skill like Evil King's Black Dragon Flame Wave, after the ambush. At that time, Billy's gunshot wound was just an act. He was actually in perfect condition. Plus, we had discussed beforehand that if I successfully used the skill, he would take it head-on and use the black flames and illusions to escape. Aldan's last few words were to make you think that my betrayal was unexpected and real. As expected, this act of sparing no expense was effective. Seeing Aldan retreat, one had to believe that everything was real. So, after Aldan retreated, you let down your guard and gave me the potion. Then, you appeared in front of me with your real body. Because you can't wait to share your clever trick with me, who is on your side, and who will never come here again to divulge it. After all, you used this trick to fool them for so long. If you don't find someone to brag about it, wouldn't it be a waste? Faust's expression hardened. Tisset, aren't you doing the same thing right now? That's different. You want to brag. Feng Bujue laughed. But I'm showing you my last concern so that you won't die without knowing why. Then, he used the antidote. The system announcement came. Current quest completed. All main quests completed. You've completed the scenario. Automatic teleportation in 60 seconds. He's right, Aldan whispered to Billy. Aldan whispered into Faust's ear. You're dead. I can guarantee that before you die, you'll fully experience what horror is. Rabbit gritted his teeth, looking like he was about to practice rabbit fist. Knowing that he was going to die, Faust glared at Feng Bujue with resentment. Why are you helping them? Do you know the price of going against the Master of Time? I have a question as well. Billy turned to ask Feng Bujue, why didn't you betray us? He said in a low voice, if you had chosen to push the door open and come in more than 10 minutes ago instead of discussing with us in advance, I think you would have succeeded. The result of the sudden betrayal would not be much different from what we had acted out. For you, that would have helped you clear the scenario, right? And it would have saved you the trouble of making an enemy out of the Master of Time. Ha! Feng Bujue chuckled. Regarding the grudge, I have already considered it. If neither of you nor I say anything, who will know that I am related to this prison break? He shrugged. I am just a traveler from another dimension, a small character that is not worth mentioning. You killed Faust and escaped. If no one leaked the news, then I had nothing to do with it. Feng Bujue said in a relaxed tone, speaking of which, what did I do? It wasn't me who captured Faust, and I didn't kill him, so I had nothing to do with it, right? He shamelessly tried to brush things off with a few words. As for why I helped you, I've already explained it. His lips curled into a smile, and there was madness in it. I'm not a member of the lawful faction. Chapter 191. Time of terror points increase. 0. Highest terror points, 0%. Average terror points, 0%. Your terror rating is Embodiment of Valor. Extra reward obtained. Please choose later. Obtain skill points. 630 additional bonus from skill points. EXP, 6,300. Game coins, 63,000. Reward for clearing the scenario. Randomly draw a usable excellent equipment. Calculation complete. Please continue. After looking through the data on the screen, another announcement rang in Feng Bujue's ears. Your title has been updated to Unpredictable Fanatic. You have reached level 19. Maximum stamina points has increased. Current 19001900. How come this title doesn't sound like a good person? Feng Bujue grumbled as he opened the menu. His eyes moved to the title. The original strategic victory had been replaced by a new skill. This time, it was an active skill, but the effect, name, take this. Special skill type, active consumption? Effect, player can choose any mastery that has been activated and randomly activate an active skill of that mastery. Cooldown time is 10 minutes, and the cost of the skill depends on the effect of the skill. The effect of the skill will not exceed the limit of the player's level and ability. Remark: madness is the shortcut for humans to uncover their own potential. Castration is the shortcut to mastering the ultimate skill. Feng Bujue roared as he looked at the remark. Isn't this Pokebai's waggle finger skill? Perhaps I'll be able to summon Ray of Destruction. That will not exceed my level and ability. But honestly, it was better than nothing. Ever since he obtained strategic victory, Feng Bujue had not encountered many normal bosses. They were either blind or had encountered something like Mr. Yu. It was rare for him to encounter two normal bosses, but he had not encountered any of them. At least this skill could be used as an active battle skill. As long as he chose fighting and Kaya, it should be useful. It was around 11:20 p.m. Feng Bujue looked at the social tab and realized that Passing Rain and Laughing Soul had gone offline, and his friend list was grayed out. At this time, the players who were not in sleeping mode all chose to complete the scenario and go offline, preparing to switch to the sleeping mode channel. Feng Bujue was also ready to go down after receiving his reward. He pressed the elevator button. After the door opened, he entered the storage room. Speaking of which, we've lost a lot of equipment in the two scenarios recently. As he inspected the game menu, he walked to the glass pillar. Looks like I've gained quite a bit from my mastery. In the scenario where I ran into the anomaly, my sorcery increased to level E, and in the scenario just now, my medic mastery also increased by 1 level. Please select your additional reward. 1. Randomly draw a piece of equipment corresponding to your level. 2. 50,000 game coins. 3. 7,600 experience points. Even if I get the experience points, I won't level up. Give me another piece of equipment. Feng Bujue once again chose to draw the equipment. After the white light gathered, it formed the shape of a gun. This gave Brother Ju quite a shock. Name: Miss Moxie's bad temper. Item type: weapon. Quality: excellent. Offense points: medium. Element: fire. Special effect: especially suitable for destroying physical bodies. Equip requirement: marksmanship D. Workmanship Remark: the temperature of the gun is not due to overheating, and the continuous vibration is not due to malfunction. In any case, please use it without worry. Feng Bujue removed the equipment, and with a nonchalant expression, he ignored the sharp remark. Fine. Now that I have a 9mm SMG submachine gun, what more can I ask for? He walked to the second glass pillar to claim the reward for clearing the scenario. Name: Goblin Gas Mask. Item type: weapon. Quality: excellent. Offense points: weak. Element: poison. Special effect: when exhaling or speaking at close range, it can poison the target. This effect is active and can be used without the facial equipment being displayed. Equip requirement: workmanship D. Level 17 and above. Remark: everyone will die, and medical insurance can guarantee that you will die in bed. Ha ha ha! Feng Bujue received 2 pieces of excellent equipment, but he did not feel happy. He carried the gun and put on the mask as he returned to the elevator. Facing the mirror, he looked at himself in a purple suit. His appearance basically was somewhere between a crazed sociopath and a crazed murderer. Unpredictable fanatic. That's quite apt. Even he himself felt that this title was quite reliable, at least in terms of appearance. After completing another single-player survival mode, Feng Bujue's data was as follows. Title: Unpredictable Fanatic EXP 6736190000 SP 3300 Game Coins 422000 Mastery: General Ability D, Workmanship D, Sleuthing E, Fighting D, Marksmanship D, Medic E, Sorcery E, Summoning NA. Inventory 610. Mario's Wrench, Flashlight, Folding Stool, SCP-500 1920, Anti-Gravity Gun, Miss Moxie's Bad Temper Equipment, Jazz Shoes, Death Poker, Sorcery Weapon, Echo Armor, Goblin Gas Mask. Space 310, Puzzle Card, Monkey, Puzzle Card, Sunglasses, Persephone's Vacuum Skills, Hasty Repair, Body Enhancement Technique, Ice Alchemist's Persistence, Watch Out. Honestly, his data was very good. Compared to other players below level 20 in the game, his mastery and equipment were quite impressive. His skill level was slightly weaker, but it was not bad. Of course, that was only his ability on the surface. It did not represent his actual ability. If there was a 1v1 killing mode and Feng Bujue had to fight another level 19 player, then it would be a different story. perhaps a random blue-collar player from a gaming studio, as long as they specialized in marksmanship or fighting, would be able to defeat Feng Bujue. That was what a battle was all about. It was not the strong who would win, but the winner would be the stronger one. After receiving the reward, Feng Bujue chose to log off. He still needed to prepare, like buying new ammo, going to the mall, and going to the thriller box to see if the one-hit kill pistol had spawned. However, he planned to do all that in sleeping mode to save time. Chapter 192. Blade Runner casually walked into the leader's meeting room. By then, there were already 4 people seated around the table. One of them was his brother, Bladeless Swordsman, and the other 3 sat on the other side of the table. Their IDs were 1 blade, 1 sword, and not a scaredy cat. After all, Jiang Hu was a top guild, and they had good discipline. In any case, none of the members sat there and munched on potato chip. However, they did not just sit there. Each of them held a bottle of drink, and they would occasionally take a sip. The snacks and drinks in Thriller Paradise were purely to satisfy one's cravings. They did not have any buff effect, and could not recover one's life points or stamina points. They would not allow the players to skip a meal in real life. However, the sales of these products in the game were surprisingly good. Be it professional players, RMB players who did not lack money, or normal casual players, they would buy some to try. Were the virtual snacks sold by Dream Company really that attractive? The answer was yes. The products they launched were mainly divided into 3 types. The first type was the most popular products, such as potato chips, cola, cigarettes, etc. The second type was more high-end products that were expensive in real life, such as expensive medicinal herbs, chocolate, alcoholic drinks, etc. The third type was the novelty products that didn't exist in real life, such as Gala crocodile jerky and rainbow juice, that only appeared in gourmet comics, as well as the game's original snacks that had horror elements, such as eyeball skewers and mummy bandage zongzi. Even though the open beta was not that long ago, and the prices of these products were not that expensive, the profit Thriller Paradise made from them was close to the profit of other consumables like ammo, medicine, batteries, and so on. This business became a big way for the system to earn game coins from the players. "Brother Xiao is not here yet?" Blade Runner asked as he sat down. His eyes scanned the faces of the 3 people across the table. They were all members of Jiang Hu, but they were not familiar with Blade Runner. Out of politeness, Child Jian nodded slightly at them as a greeting. Bladeless Swordsman replied, "Most likely, he's busy with the thing that you mentioned earlier." "Is it that troublesome?" Blade Runner asked. You're the one who put the things aside, and now you're the one who leaves everything to others." Bladeless Swordsman laughed. "We've been busy with a lot of things. Do you think it's that easy to train a workmanship mastery? Other than Order, which other guild would be able to summon several players of each specialization just by shouting?" Blade Runner shrugged. "Well, I've never practiced it before, so I don't know how difficult it is." While they were talking, the door to the conference room opened again. A man about 185 meters tall with a calm and resolute face walked in. Laughing at the heavens, one of the 3 bosses of Jiang Hu Studio. At the same time, he was also the leader of Jiang Hu. Suppose a group of people were stranded on a deserted island, trapped deep in the mountains, or trapped in an unknown and dangerous space. At first, they would be at a loss. At this time, Laughing at the Heavens would undoubtedly be the one they could rely on. He would be the one who would be expected to stand up and do something. To put it simply, this was the temperament of a leader. To put it simply, this person looked reliable. In reality, Laughing at the Heavens, Bladeless Swordsman, and Blade Runner were already considered young entrepreneurs. In the game world, they were also influential figures among the professional players. However, if one were to say who could represent Jiang Hu Studio, it would be Laughing at the Heavens. In terms of gaming ability, Laughing Blade and Blade were on par. In the past, in other virtual reality games, they would naturally spar with each other. There had always been wins and losses between them. Disregarding the profession and equipment in the game, there was no obvious difference between the three of them. However, in terms of managing the company, Bladeless Swordsman and Child Jian were far from each other. The important decisions and future development of the studio had been made by Laughing at the Heavens from the very beginning. For a company like theirs that had risen from the ground up, such a wise decision-maker was the cornerstone of their success. You're all here, right? Laughing at the Heavens walked to the head of the table and sat down. His eyes scanned Bladeless Swordsman and Blade Runner on his right before turning to the three on his left. You've all met each other, right? We've chatted for a while, Bladeless Swordsman replied. But Child Jian has just arrived, so why don't you introduce him? Laughing at the Heavens then raised his right arm to face the three on his left. Child Jian, Blade Runner. I've heard so much about you. One Blade and One Sword finally had the chance to meet an expert. While they were excited, they were still rather reserved. Scaredy Cat, who was standing beside them, pouted and did not say anything. There's no need to be so polite, Blade Runner replied with a smile. Laughing at the Heavens then turned to Blade Runner and said, even though One Blade and One Sword are not professional players, their online time is quite consistent. I think they have quite the potential. He paused. Haven't you been complaining about not being able to find suitable teammates in Killing Game? How about they follow you in the future? Sure. Flashes of Sword agreed easily. He was a man who knew how to conduct himself. At a moment like this, he could either reject or agree to it. If he acted like he was a prostitute and gave his answer after much deliberation, it would have put One Blade and One Sword in a difficult position. We're all in the same guild, and there's even EXP bonus. I couldn't ask for more, Blade Runner said. Haha, then we'll be in your care in the future, Child Jian. One Blade and One Sword were also overjoyed. To them, it was already good enough that they were able to mingle in a famous and reputable guild like World of Martial Arts. When their guild leader said that they had potential, it was enough for them to gloat for quite some time. Now that they were assigned to team up with Blade Runner, it was practically a godsend. They were both players who used melee weapons, and to be able to observe the battle of a top player like Blade Runner, it would be hard for their skills not to improve. Other than that, this is not a scaredy cat. Laughing at the Heavens continued the introduction. She is an expert recommended by One Blade and One Sword. She just joined the guild today, and I wish for you to meet her. When Bladeless and Child Jian heard that, their expressions shifted slightly. They were both wondering what the meaning of meet her was. Is she your girlfriend or relative, so you brought her here for us to meet? Based on the way you're introducing her, that doesn't seem to be the case. In other words, even though this beauty is not an employee of our studio, she is a very capable casual player that we must meet? Hello, not a scaredy cat said casually. When she met a stranger in the script, she would act cute, but at that moment it was gone. In its place, she was a tough woman. Since Bladeless had joined earlier, he had already greeted her. This was the first time that Child Jian had spoken to not a scaredy cat, so he replied, hello. He thought to himself, I've never seen her before, and I've never heard of a professional player who uses the nickname, not a scaredy cat, but Brother Laughing seems to value her a lot. Interesting. Not a scaredy cat, you can queue up with Bladeless in the future. Try to stay online at a steady pace and level up faster. After you reach level 30, I wish to assign you to a specialized team to tackle the team's survival mode on Nightmare difficulty, Laughing at the Heavens said. Other than that, from level 30 to level 39, there are 3 sentry battles before the ranking mat. I hope you can join your teammates in that. I'll make the necessary arrangements. At the same time, in Underworld Frontline's meeting room, Feng Bujue walked into the meeting room and saw Passing Rain holding her cheeks with her hands. She looked listless as she observed the boring scene around her. Laughing Soul was tossing popcorn at Xiao Tan from across the table. She was trying to get more popcorn on Xiao Tan's hair. "You've been waiting for me?" Feng Bujue asked. They were already in the game in sleeping mode. "Actually, we've only been waiting for 10 minutes, Passing Rain said. Feng Bujue turned to look at the number of popcorn on Xiao Tan's head. "I'm curious. If I came any later, what would have happened to this trick of using popcorn to pass the time?" "Perhaps she would have asked me to open my mouth to receive it," Xiao Tan replied. "I'm happy that you've finally found a friend whose mental age is close to yours." Feng Bujue smiled. "Nonsense. I'm much more mature than him." Laughing Soul grumbled. "Of course, anyone who went to primary school knows that girls mature early," Feng Bujue said as he sat down at the table. Laughing Soul glanced at this sharp-tongued guild leader and stuck out her tongue to make a face. "I hear you're going to be on TV?" Passing Rain asked. "Ah. So, you've already done the promotion." Feng Bujue admitted it. He turned to Xiao Tan. By the way, how's your left hand? Did the effect of breaking the bottle of slowing sand show up?" "I'm fine," Xiao Tan replied. He raised his hand. "There's nothing wrong. I even finished 2 scenarios after work, and I didn't feel any effect. Perhaps after I finish the death quiz scenario, the effect disappeared." "The negative effect in the scenario won't be carried back to the login lobby," Laughing Soul said. "Guild leader, aren't you familiar with the game's manual? Why are you so conflicted about this?" "Because I think there's something wrong with the scenario," Feng Bujue said, but he did not say it out loud. "As long as there's nothing wrong." Every time, it was Passing Rain who brought the topic back on track. If she was not there, who knew how long this group of people would continue to talk nonsense? "We've been through a few more scenarios. Let's discuss our levels and status again before we depart." Chapter 193. In the 10 minutes that he was late, Feng Bujue had already done everything that he needed to do before the scenario. He went to the market to buy 5 life points recovery potions, medium, and 6 bullets for the submachine gun, spending a total of 40,000 game coins. Then, he went to the thriller box to search for the one-shot pistol and contrametal that he had seen in the previous nightmare scenario, and he did find them. The contrametal in the thriller box had the same stats as the one that Feng Bujue had used when he used the Black Dragon Wave, and it cost 20,000 skill points. At the current stage, probably only the top few players on the level ranking had the possibility of purchasing it, and most players could only look at the price and sigh. As for the attributes of the one-hit kill pistol, it had been greatly modified by the system. Even though the gun's special effect was still a one-shot, it had lost its sure-hit effect. The user needed to aim, and it was ineffective against the scenario's final boss and players. The ammo was still unlimited, but the number of shots was limited. Only 5 shots could be fired within an hour. Even so, the price of the weapon was still set at 50,000 skill points. Even though both of them were legendary items, compared to the other legendary weapon, Iron Suya, that Feng Bujue had found before, they were still quite a distance away. In terms of price, both of them added together were not as expensive as that one, so the price given by the thriller box was quite reasonable. Feng Bujue did not want his teammates to wait for too long, so he quickly finished his shopping. After satisfying his curiosity, he hurried to the meeting room. The meeting room that they were in was opened by Passing Rain, and so was the team leader. However, after Feng Bujue joined the group, she had transferred her authority to the team leader. Other than Feng Bujue, the other 4's stats and equipment did not change much. Xiao Tan, Passing Rain, and Laughing Soul were now level 17. Their titles were the same as before, and their weapons were the same. In terms of mastery, the 3 of them had improved slightly. Xiao Tan had already met the requirements to learn Shadow of the Devil Bat, so Feng Bujue directly took out the skill from the guild's public storage for him to learn. While they were exchanging information, Feng Bujue told them about Long Aomin joining other guilds. Other than that, he also mentioned Hard Drive 2455A1 and his agreement with Blade Runner. The players from Underworld Frontline quickly understood. Blade Runner had been tricked by Feng Bujue. Brother Ju was the real boss who didn't need to do anything. He just needed to wait for the other party to finish creating the equipment and send it over. Although it was a pity that Brother Dragon couldn't join, it wasn't a big deal. After all, Underworld Frontline was a small guild for leisure. Feng Bujue didn't plan to create a powerful six-man team. In the future, if he met like-minded players, he would just add them. In terms of the number of people in the guild, he did not deliberately force it. After the four gave each other their information, they prepared to depart. They returned to their login lobby. After Feng Bujue connected to the team communicator and confirmed it, they entered the queue system. Feng Bujue, level 19 Wang Tanji, level 17 Rain Like Rain, level 17 Laughing Soul, level 17. Please select the game mode that your team wishes to join. You have selected Team Survival Mode, Normal. Please confirm. Confirmed. The number of team members has been randomized, 5. Your team has joined the queue. Currently searching for other players or teams that are ready. Matching complete. Coordinating nerve connection. Generating scenario. Downloading. Please wait a moment. Welcome to Thriller Paradise. This time, the voice sounded like that of an old witch. It was eerie, similar to the voice Feng Bujue heard when he played the newbie training. Download complete. You are currently in Team Survival Mode, Normal. This mode provides a scenario introduction, and there is a chance to trigger hidden side quests and special world building. Reward for clearing the scenario, 100,000 game coins. Playing the scenario introduction soon. After that, the game will start. The introductory cinematic started to play, the moon hung high in the sky. On a small road, the sound of horse hooves approached. Soon, a horse galloped down the road. The horse was white, and the person on the horse was also dressed in white. The man in white was dressed like a knight from ancient times, but he was not carrying any weapon. It was unclear why he was traveling in the middle of the night. 10 years ago, there was a shocking battle at Purple Cloud Ruins. The Nameless Sword, Xiesan, and the God of Swords, Yi Qing fought for 2 days and 2 nights. There was no clear victor. The subtitles and the system audio appeared at the bottom of the screen. What the hell is going on? Once Feng Bujue heard the opening that sounded like a wuxia novel, he had a feeling that the plot was about to unfold again. 10 years later, the two had no rivals in the martial world, so a battle was inevitable. This battle was to fight for the best in the world and prove their swordsmanship. The location of the battle was set at an abandoned village in a deserted area to the southwest. At this point, the man in white suddenly pulled on the reins of his horse and focused on the small road before him. His eyes scanned the shadowy forest on both sides. I am the Jade-Faced Tanhua, Bai Dian. I wonder where you are from. Do you mind coming out to meet me? His voice was not loud, but in the night it could be heard very far away. Go back, an old man replied. An old man's voice replied. Although these words were transmitted into Bai Dian's ears, Bai Dian was completely unable to grasp the position of the person who had spoken. The voice seemed to be coming from all directions. Humph. I presume you've come to watch the matchless battle 3 days from now as well, right? Bai Dian grunted coldly. You want me to? He hadn't finished speaking when he fell off his horse, and not long after he fell to the ground, he became a corpse. The camera moved to give Bai Dian a close-up. His eyes that were open in death were filled with shock. Before he died, he only had time to grab his unique weapon, a strangely shaped dart, in his hand. Unfortunately, it didn't come in handy at all. The camera moved again to the left side of Bai Dian's neck. Then, the players saw clearly that there was a bamboo skewer stuck there. Chonglin Town is surrounded by mountains on 3 sides. Rumor has it that there is an old temple in the forest to the north of the village. It is occupied by evil spirits, so evil spirits come down from the mountain to wreak havoc. There are villagers who die mysteriously in the town, and the government is helpless. Many years have passed, and the local residents have all moved away, and this town has become a ghost town. This year, on the 15th day of the 8th month, the 2 great swordsmen agreed to fight here. The news was leaked and the martial world was shaken. Experts from all over the world flocked to this place. The inn in this abandoned town mysteriously reopened in just a few days, and more than 100 famous people from the martial world stayed there. What is the result of this battle? What is the truth behind this ghost town? Is there a hidden conspiracy behind all of this? That was the end of the storyline. The 4 players from Underworld Frontline and another player appeared on the path whereby Dian had died. However, they were still at least a kilometer away from the scene of the incident. Main quest triggered. Enter Chonglin Town. Nowadays, experts don't go to the Forbidden City to fight but come to a haunted village. How brave! Feng Bujue held his forehead and grumbled. It's you. A familiar voice rang out. Feng Bujue lifted his head to look and saw a face that he did not want to see. He said instinctively, "Are you kidding me? That's my line, isn't it?" Atobi-sama roared. "Where are your 3 teammates?" Feng Bujue asked. Atobi replied, "They went to fight a 3v3. You really are a burden," Feng Bujue said directly. "What are you talking about?" Atobi-sama grumbled with annoyance, but he did not have anything else to say. "Friend." Passing Rain looked at Feng Bujue and asked curtly. Feng Bujue hesitated. I suppose so." He turned to tell Xiao Tan and Laughing Soul, "Let me introduce you. This is the leader of Hyodii Cowherd. You still remember Xiao Tan, right? He was one of the 2 that were killed in the BW Wolf scenario." "Oh right, I think that's his name." Xiao Tan had only seen the IDs Atobi-sama, and names are so hard to choose in the scenario, but he had not met them in person. "Who are you calling a cowherd? Look at yourself. You look like a madman. Combined with a gothic club name, you have the nerve to call me a cowherd?" As Atobi-sama said that, he noticed that the 2 men and 2 women beside him had the badge of Underworld Frontline. He asked, "You guys are part of a club?" "Yes, I can be considered the leader now. Even though I can't say that I have that much authority, after seeing such a sad example like you, I suddenly feel a sense of superiority," Feng Bujue said. Atobi felt like he would enter an endless cycle of insults if this continued. In terms of sharp tongue, he was not on the same level as Feng Bujue, so he had no choice but to endure it. He changed the topic. By the way, what is your club's buff?" "Oh, about that." Feng Bujue thought that it was fine to share that information with the man. After all, the club's buff would change based on the weekly ranking. The first is decrease the exhaustion of all stamina points in the scenario by 3%, and the second is increase the time limit of forced offline after the terror points reach its peak by 3 seconds. Atobi-sama thought about it. It is not much different from what I expected. Our club's buff is a small increase in the recovery speed of life points and game coins. He paused. Looks like the clubs that are ranked at the bottom of the ranking have this kind of buff. That is better than nothing. You'll know that when you take a look at the forum, Feng Bujue said. Is that so? Atobi-sama was startled. I say, how long has it been since you last logged off? Feng Bujue asked. Looking at the team tab, he noticed that Atobi-sama was now level 20, and his title was High-Profile Ambusher. Don't tell me that you've been playing for a limited time other than sleeping and eating? But I'm a professional player. Atobi-sama said seriously. Fine. Feng Bujue shrugged. Since Atobi-sama was the only outsider, the 5 did not need to spend too much time introducing each other. They chatted for a while before Feng Bujue cleared his throat and started to sell his first strategy. Chapter 194. Your appearance in the NPC's perspective will be adjusted by the system to fit the scenario's setting. When Feng Bujue reached the spot whereby Dian was killed in the introductory cinematic, the system announcement appeared in his ears. Brother Ju naturally understood that he had entered the NPC's line of sight, and the announcement was proof of that. Feng Bujue lowered his head to look at by Dian's body. The moonlight shone on the body's ghastly features. Senior, if I pretend that I don't know you're hiding nearby, will you let me pass just like that? Feng Bujue suddenly asked. His voice was not loud, but it was clear that he was not talking to himself. His tone was neither servile nor overbearing, but the way he addressed the old man could be considered polite. Since you've already spoken to me, it proves that not only do you know that I'm nearby, you also know the answer to this question. The old man's reply drifted through the wind, and it was hard to tell where it came from. Feng Bujue laughed mockingly. Can't I be lying to you? The voice was silent, and there was no answer. When I arrived here, I found a body lying on the ground. The victim was wounded by a hidden weapon, and the wound was at the back of his neck. With a cursory glance, this wound alone was fatal, so it was most likely caused by a sneak attack. The killer used only a bamboo stick, which goes to show how powerful his internal energy is. Feng Bujue continued. Therefore, I open my mouth to test whether the killer is still nearby. Is that reasonable? The old man replied through voice transmission. Then how do you know I'm your senior? It's very simple. I'm still young, and most of the people in Jiang who are my seniors. Feng Bujue smiled. Furthermore, senior, the way you killed someone with a bamboo stick doesn't look like something a young man would use. Without powerful internal energy, one wouldn't be able to pull off something like that. Actually, Feng Bujue had been talking nonsense so far. He was merely using the information he got from the introductory cinematic to deal with this NPC. It doesn't matter if you're lying to me or not. It doesn't change anything. The old man replied. Go back. He still gave this sentence, the same sentence that Tanhua heard before he died. Can I ask what kind of person is qualified to pass? Feng Bujue asked. The other party's answer was only one word, expert. Could it be that this dead man beside my feet isn't an expert? Yes, but he is a member of the imperial court. The old man paused. So not only can he not pass, he must die. I'm not from the imperial court, and I'm considered an expert, Feng Bujue said. In that case, I should be able to pass, right? Ha, 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 ha. The old man laughed out loud, his laughter echoing all around. Suddenly, a shadow flashed out from the forest. An old man in a blue robe appeared several meters before Feng Bujue. The old man looked to be in his 70s. His hair and beard were all white, but his back was straight. He did not look kind, but he did not look like an evil person either. Little brother, why don't you tell your friends to come out as well? Feng Bujue played dumb. What friends? I'm not as clever as you, and I'm not interested in tricking you, the old man said. The old man continued, I know that you have 4 accomplices who are searching for my whereabouts in the dark, and you are here to attract my attention. Fine, fine. Seeing that he had been exposed, Feng Bujue turned around and shouted, Come out, we've been discovered. Xiao Tan's group of 4 walked out from the forest. Laughing Soul was still holding the MP5, and the barrel was pointed at the old man. She looked like she was ready to fire at any moment. Since he had no idea what that was, the old man did not pay it much attention. By the way, they are all experts as well. Feng Bujue's tone did not sound like he was lying. Even though I'm old, my eyesight is not that bad. Look at your steps, movement, presence, and so on. The old man shook his head with a smile. You kids don't know any kung fu, do you? He had confidence in that observation, and that was why he dared to show himself. Go back. Chong Lin Town is not a place for you to visit. Even the veterans who have been in the martial world for decades might not be able to survive until the night of the duel. Senior, we're going there to watch the duel, not to participate in it. It's their business that the veterans like to have friendly matches in town. They can even have cage fights. We just need to stay out of it, Feng Bujue said. The other party did not understand most of what he said. The old man was stunned for a few seconds before replying, "Haha, you guys really don't know anything. The matters of the martial arts world are not as simple and naive as you think." He took several steps forward to stand before Feng Bujue. He looked at the thin brother Bujue. "Furthermore, with your body, I'm afraid you won't even be able to defeat a street performer. Even if you've seen the duel of the Blade God, what can you tell? I told you I'm an expert. Senior, why don't you believe me?" Feng Bujue replied. The old man's expression seemed to say, "You're being unreasonable." He shook his head. "Then why don't you tell me your name?" He pointed at the body on the ground. "If you're not as famous as this jade-faced Tanhua, you'd better go back now. Don't stay here and embarrass yourself." Feng Bujue's lips curled into a smile and he scoffed. Humph! This was his forte. "I am the man who punched Guang Liang, kicked Su Hang, swung his sword through the three Qins, dominated the northern frontier, washed Dongying with blood, and was undefeatable in China. People call me the unpredictable madman, the leader of broken sword Chahitsu, Feng Bujue." After saying all that shamelessly, he still had not had enough, so he gave the old man the title of the poem. "Thank you for the love of my friends in the martial world. Here's a poem for you. I laugh at the sea, watching thousands of soldiers break through. I plan the universe and calculate karma. Without feeling or fear, I'm not a ghost, not a god, but a demon." The old man was shocked. 1. He had not heard of an organization called Broken Sword Chahitsu, and 2. He had not heard of a person called Feng Bujue. However, the long list of titles did not sound like something that was made up on the spot. In any case, if it was the old man himself, he would not have been able to come up with something like that. "You." The old man was speechless. He had been certain that these 5 people were not that good at kung fu, but after being tricked by Feng Bujue, he started to waver. Atobi-sama was equally shocked. He thought that Feng Bujue would come up with some random nickname that was commonly seen in wuxia novels, but he did not expect the man to come up with such a long list. Furthermore, the content was off the charts. Compared to this title, the so-called third flower of the Jade Face competition was nothing. "Oh, by the way, I still haven't asked for Senior's name." Feng Bujue clasped his fist. "I'm just a servant, my name is not worth mentioning," the old man replied. He seemed to have realized something, so he added, "Little brother, you are indeed clever and eloquent, but the title of an expert is not for show." "I understand, but Senior still doesn't believe me," Feng Bujue said. "I'll show you what I've got." At that moment, he was thinking, "Old man, if not for the fact that you appear to be related to the main storyline, I wouldn't waste my time talking to you. If you insist on not letting me pass, then I'll have to treat you to a bullet." Feng Bujue took half a step back. "Senior, how about you take one of my attacks?" "One attack, even if it's 10 or 100 attacks." Before the old man could finish his sentence, Chen Gu interrupted him. Feng Bujue used the opportunity to activate his title skill, Ta. The skill he chose was a fighting skill. Feng Bujue knew that he would be able to use something, but he didn't know what it would be. The old man saw that Feng Bujue was about to attack, so he didn't dare to be careless. No one could be sure that this young man was not hiding his internal energy and was planning to play the pig to eat the tiger. The old man used 70% of his power and raised his palm to meet the attack. With a bang, Feng Bujue clashed with the old man's palm, and then he stumbled back 5 steps. Only he knew that in that exchange, he had lost 30% of his life point. Thankfully, The old man only used his palm to defend and didn't push forward, or else Feng Bujue would be in danger. Although the old man didn't move from his original spot, he revealed a shocked expression. His palm was already crimson red, and it was burning as if it was an iron brand. Activating a fire elemental skill, not bad. Feng Bujue appeared calm on the surface. It's just a small trick. The old man placed his hands behind his back. I didn't think I would be so blind today. He moved to the side. Young heroes, please. Senior, aren't you going to test the kung fu of my friends? Feng Bujue pointed at Atobi-sama. Look at that sissy, he looks so weak. Hey! Atobi expressed his dissatisfaction at this man's betrayal of his teammate. The old man pretended not to hear the second half of Feng Bujue's sentence and replied calmly, There's no need. I believe these four are not to be underestimated. Master Feng, please. Even the way he addressed Feng Bujue had changed. The old man seems to have been stunned by me. Looks like the skill I used earlier was very powerful. Feng Bujue said. No wonder it used up 300 stamina points and 30 spirit points. Thank you, Senior, Feng Bujue said as he winked at his teammates, signaling for them to start moving. After the five walked down the path, the old man raised his palm to his eyes and said darkly, Broken Sword Chahitsu's master, humph. This kid is full of nonsense, but his attacks are indeed powerful. He adjusted his breathing, as if trying to suppress the pain in his hand. If he was a man in his 40s, that palm strike just now wouldn't have been much. It's nothing more than the palm strength of a virgin boy who had trained hard for 30 years. But this kid is only in his early 20s. To be able to deliver such a powerful attack, there is no other explanation other than pure yang internal energy. I wonder when so many powerful characters appeared in the martial world. Looks like the experts attracted by the master's duel, be it in terms of skill or number, have far exceeded our expectations. Chapter 195. Even though Chonglin Town was surrounded by mountains on three sides, there were two roads leading into the town. A main road extended from the nearest county town, Copper Hill. The other road was the one that appeared when Feng Bujue's group entered the scenario. The situation on the other side of the road was more tense. Copper Hill was filled with people from various sects, people from the martial world, and even soldiers from the government. There were several thousand people there. Naturally, not all of them would go to Chonglin. If they did, the small town would be flattened. Therefore, there were certain conditions to take the main road to enter Chonglin. After the sect leaders of the various sects discussed with each other, they set down two rules. First, each sect had many disciples, so they could not bring all of them with them. Therefore, each leader could only choose at most 20 disciples to follow them into the town. The rest of the disciples had to stay at Copper Hill and were not allowed to cause trouble. Second, people from the evil path were not allowed to pass. Of course, what was the evil path? Wasn't it still up to the so-called righteous people to have the final say? Other than the murderers and rapists who were wanted by both the martial world and the government, some of the more marginalized people were categorized into the evil path and blocked from entering Copper Hill City. Even though these people were not known for their righteousness, they were not evil either. Most of them preferred to be alone or had a strange personality, so they did not associate with the righteous path. Now they finally understood what it meant to be on the same side. It was worth mentioning that in the setting of this scenario, the court normally would not interfere with the vengeance of the martial world unless it involved the civilians. The people of the martial world would not care about the court either. Who became the emperor and how well they did it had nothing to do with the martial artists. This was an invisible line between the two, and it was not allowed to be crossed. Therefore, at least on the surface, the soldiers from the government were sent to Copper Hill to maintain order. If there were martial artists who disturbed the civilians, they would be captured and dealt with. They would not care about anything else. Now for the small road, those who took this road were naturally those who were stopped at the main road or those who were not allowed to show themselves at Copper Hill. The disciples of the major sects were guarding the Copper Hill day and night. Anyone who tried to sneak out or barge in through the main road was courting death. Those with weaker martial arts would be shot into a beehive by the arrows, while those with higher martial arts would be besieged by hundreds of people dauntlessly. Sooner or later, they would run out of internal energy. Therefore, if this group of people wanted to enter Chonglin Town, they would have to take the shortcut. As long as the number of people was small and their whereabouts were well hidden, they would be able to reach this small path after making a detour for a day. However, there was also a malefic star guarding this place. The blue-robed elder's identity was Yi Hai, the housekeeper of the sword god Yi Cheng's residence. There were no stories about him in Jianghu, and not many people had heard of his name because he had never ventured into Jianghu. Yi Hai had been a servant in the Yi residence since he was 12 years old. It had been more than 60 years since then. Since he became the housekeeper of the Yi residence at the age of 32, the Yi residence had already changed 3 masters. Only he, the housekeeper, had remained unmoved. Yi Hai's martial arts were taught to him by Yi Cheng's grandfather. Yi Hai's talent was not that high, and he knew that very well. Furthermore, as a servant, even if he was talented, he did not have the right to join the Yi family. However, at the time, old Master Yi had been secretly teaching this young man. When the young master was practicing, he had Yi Hai sweep the floor and purposely read out some of the mantras. When Yi Hai secretly practiced at night, the whole Yi residence pretended not to see it. The Yi family's martial arts were all top-notch, and hard work made up for it. Even though Yi Hai's talent was average, by the time he was 30, he had made some progress and could be considered one of the top masters in the Jianghu. 2 years later, he became the Yi family's housekeeper, got married and had a son. For Yi Hai, that was the happiest period of his life. Several years later, old Master Yi passed away, and Yi Cheng's father inherited the family business. He allowed Yi Hai's son to join the Yi family as an official disciple. Unfortunately, the boy was too competitive. When he was 16, before he could finish his martial arts, he got into a fight outside and died. Yi Hai's wife died not long after that. After losing his family, the sense of duty to serve the Yi family became Yi Hai's spiritual sustenance and life's goal. In other words, Yi Hai had been grateful and loyal to the Yi family for the rest of his life. The current Yi Hai, in terms of martial arts mastery, even if the leaders of the big sects came, they would not be his match. There were only 2 kinds of people who could beat Yi Hai. One was a 1-in-a-million master like Xie San and Yi Cheng. The other was a Khanate master who had trained for many years, and this kind of person had to be more talented than Yi Hai, on par with him in terms of skill, and at least 60% of his internal energy. Only with these 3 conditions could one beat him. With such a person guarding the path, the result was predictable. In this half a month, many villains who were famous and not famous in the Jianghu were taken down by Yi Hai. In a way, he was helping the people of the Jianghu. Those who were not good at kung fu were invited back. Only the real masters, those who were worthy enough to watch the duel, entered Chonglin Town through the path. As for people like Bai Dian, who appeared to be part of the Jianghu but actually had connections with the court, many of them died. After all, the court was the court. Since the beginning of time, the government had always said one thing and done another. On the surface, they did not interfere with the affairs of the Jianghu, but in reality, they did interfere in many places behind the scenes, but they would never admit it. Therefore, in similar situations, the Jianghu people would not hesitate to kill the people from the court. After all, the court would not admit that they were the ones who sent the assassin, so they could only suffer in silence. On the same night, in the forest to the north of Chonglin Town, not far away from the rumored haunted temple, the vines and grass were knee-high and there was no sound. Looking into the forest, it was dark and eerie. The branches above their heads intertwined, and the ground was covered in thorns. A shadow flew over, stepping on the grass without making a sound. The person who came was a woman. She wore a green robe, and her figure was slender and fit. Her appearance could be considered to be elegant and refined. However, at that moment, her expression was serious, and there was a trace of fear in her eyes. "Your qigong is not bad," a cold voice said. As he spoke, another shadow appeared. Based on his posture, not only was he not holding a weapon, his hands were behind his back. He looked like he could win without even using his hand. The woman did not say anything. Her sword carried a gust of wind, and she used all her cultivation to slash at him. The black shadow used an inconceivable movement to dodge the sword and stepped on the long sword with his right foot. Using his vigorous inner strength to suppress the sword, the woman's face flushed red and she used all her strength, but the sword was unable to be pulled out at all. "Unfortunately, the qigong that you specialize in is nothing more than a trick for me," the shadow said in a low voice. The black shadow said in a deep voice, "Heroine Lu, you can only blame your bad luck for discovering my secret, so you must die." Before Lu Qingning could reply, something changed around them. At that moment, a strange bell rang in the dark. At the same time, both of them were surrounded by an indescribable chill. Chapter 196. Underworld Frontline passed Yi Hai and walked down the path for about half an hour before they reached the entrance to Chonglin Town. Along the way, Feng Bujue had been analyzing the scenario and discussing how to deal with it with his teammate. In terms of NPC power, based on the power of the blue-robed elder, the martial artists in this scenario were undoubtedly quite strong. If the players were to compete with them in Kung Fu, they would not survive even if they had several lives. However, the players had their own advantages. Things like skills and equipment were considered supernatural in this world. Even for experts like Yi Cheng or Xie San, if they were shot by a gun when they were caught off guard, they would definitely die. However, Feng Bujue believed that under normal circumstances, it was best to avoid conflict with the NPCs and not expose the only advantage that they had as players. Since this was a scenario generated in sleeping mode, the process might take a long time. This meant that the players might have to stay in this scenario for a long time. Without a doubt, the key to the plot was the duel, and the scenario would not end before the duel happened. Bai Dian had mentioned the duel in 3 days, and this message appeared in the introductory cinematic. It was an obvious hint. The players who took note of this sentence would naturally have their own thoughts. In another 2 to 3 hours, the sun would rise, and the first day would officially begin. The day of the duel would be the 3rd day. Assuming Yi Cheng and Xie San planned to find a place to enjoy the moon at 7 p.m. on the 3rd day, then there would be 65 hours until the duel. At night, Feng Bujue exited from the non-sleeping mode and went to sleep inside the gaming hub. The login time was set at 12:10 a.m. The preparation time before entering the scenario was negligible. In real life, it would only take about 2 minutes. Based on the situation of the scenario, if they wanted to clear the scenario, it would end at around 7 a.m. If there were no accidents, they would only be able to play this one scenario for the rest of the night. So, it is decided. I am the owner of Broken Sword Chahitsu, and you are all my guests. Feng Bujue walked to the entrance of the village and confirmed with the rest. Try not to get into conflict with others. Even if you do not take out your gun unless it is absolutely necessary. Modern weapons are our trump card. As long as we use it once and it is seen by others, the next time we use it, it will be hard for the other party to rush at us. When he said that, a dilapidated wall made of bricks and wooden stacks appeared before the 5. The entrance to the village looked simple. It was built against a mountain, and there were 3 words carved on it, Chong Lin Town. The 3 words were written Lin Feng Bujue editor, Lucas Bujue's book Cha. Of the characters were Bujue's book. As long as one was a martial artist, they would be able to tell at a glance that these characters were not chiseled on with a chisel, nor were they engraved with a weapon. Instead, these characters were written in one go by using one's finger as a brush and releasing one's true energy. These 3 words were tall and strong in shape, and they carried a majestic, simple, and forceful meaning. The martial arts of the senior who wrote these words were unimaginably high. Even the 2 peerless swordsmen who were going to duel this time were far from being a match for this person. Of course, these words had been written when Changlin Town was first built. The elder was no longer with this world, but his magnificent feat was left behind for future generations to admire. Oh, we're here, right? With the help of the moonlight, Xiao Tan looked at the name of the town carved into the wall. This is so strange. Didn't the introduction say that this is just a small village? But the name of the town is carved so conspicuously. Do you think only illegal armed groups like Huagua Mountain and Curtain Cave can carve the name of a place on a mountain? Feng Bujue joked. Atobi-sama then chimed in. Even though I don't know much about these things, these words don't look like they were carved, right? Could it have been carved by an expert sword? That's possible. Xiao Tan immediately said. Perhaps someone who came to watch the duel purposely showed this at the entrance to intimidate every martial artist who entered the village. That can't be right, Passing Rain denied calmly. She was still a woman of few words. Xiao Tan and Atobi both turned to look at her, but she had no intention of explaining. She turned around and used the back of her hand to touch Feng Bujue's shoulder. What's wrong? Do you have a social disorder? Feng Bujue looked at Passing Rain. Passing Rain used her cold gaze to stare at Feng Bujue. There was no emotion on her face, but this gave off an invisible pressure. No. Laughing Soul, who was standing to the side, seemed to have seen something because she suddenly laughed out loud. Fine, let me explain. Feng Bujue shrugged and turned to Xiao Tan's group. The words on the wall are obviously not from this era. Look closely at the moss and the cracks on the rock. You can see that the words have been carved here for quite some time. With regards to the purpose of the carver from 100 years ago, perhaps that person was the one who gave this place its name. He paused like he was reminded of something. Interesting. Perhaps it is not because of this duel that Changlin Town has become so special. Instead, it is because of the town's hidden secret that this duel is happening. Hey, there's someone over there. He seems to have noticed us, Laughing Soul suddenly said and used her finger to point at the entrance of the village. The group turned to look, and about 30 meters away from them, they saw a figure sitting on the ground. Feng Bujue was the first to rush forward. After all, he was a good talker and had fast reflexes. He was the most efficient person to deal with the NPC. After crossing the old barrier, the 5 officially entered Changlin Town, and the system announcement came. Current quest changed. Main quest updated. In the menu, there was a tick next to Enter Changlin Town. The new quest also showed up. Investigate the truth behind the duel. When he saw the content of the new quest, Feng Bujue cursed. F***CK. For him, this quest was much more troublesome than go to the ruined temple to investigate the truth behind the evil spirit, because the so-called truth behind the duel could be anything. Perhaps it was related to the court, perhaps it was related to the haunted village, perhaps Yi Cheng was an alien, or perhaps Xie San and Yi Cheng were gay friends. Everyone knew that there was some kind of conspiracy behind the plot, but the content of the main quest suddenly changed from a very specific action to something without any direction. Didn't this mean that the players were completely free to play? While he was thinking, Feng Bujue walked to the figure sitting on the ground. At this distance, he could get a better look. It was an old beggar, about the same age as Yi Hai. His face was covered in dust, and his clothes were tattered. He held a meat bone in one hand and a wine gourd in the other. As he ate and drank, he raised his eyes to observe Feng Bujue's group. When Brother Ju got close, he opened his lips to say, These few days there have been quite a lot of people on the path, but I, this old beggar, know all of them." He licked his lips and swallowed a mouthful of meat. "Today is so strange, there are a few new faces. Ha ha! That old Yihai, why would he allow a bunch of kids to sneak in?" "I am his illegitimate son," Feng Bujue replied seriously. "Pfft!" The old beggar almost choked on the wine. He coughed until tears came out of his eyes. When he caught his breath, he widened his eyes and asked, "What did you say?" "Ha ha! I was just joking with Senior." Feng Bujue cupped his hands. "This junior is the head of Broken Sword Chahitsu, Feng Bujue. These are my friends. They are usually guests in the Chahitsu. Never heard of them." The old beggar waved his hand and interrupted him. "I see that you are quite polite. Let me give you a piece of advice. Hurry up and go back. Don't get involved in this mess." Of course, Feng Bujue would not leave. With a smile on his face, he asked politely, "May I know Senior's name?" The old beggar looked confused. "You don't know who I am?" As he spoke, he waved the hand holding the gourd in front of Feng Bujue. It was a red gourd, and the old beggar's right hand had a broken little finger. Feng Bujue Hong Qigong. Impossible. Hong Qigong had a big gourd, and it was his index finger that was broken. My eyes have failed me. Senior, you are an elder, an expert beyond this world. Please forgive me. Feng Bujue was once again interrupted. Ha 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 ha. The old beggar laughed. "Kid, you really don't know me. Ha 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 ha." This old man was obviously not Hong Qigong, but he was the head of the beggar sect. He was called the Beggar King, and his name was Mengjio. 7 years ago, Mengjio was defeated by Xiesan, and one of his fingers was broken. This matter was known to all. There were even some charlatans who claimed that Mengjio was fated to meet his fate. The most ridiculous thing was that this claim was widely spread and accepted by the masses. It was as if people didn't use their brains to think. According to this logic, Xiesan should have had 7 fingers cut off. Mengjio was the head of the biggest sect in the world. His name was easy to remember, and the finger incident happened. It was hard to find anyone in the world who didn't know him. It was said that there were many old beggars who chopped off their own fingers and pretended to be him to eat and drink. It was clear that he was famous. "If you are not pretending to be stupid, then..." Mengjio suddenly stopped laughing. He grabbed Feng Bujue's wrist and pressed his pulse. The old beggar's originally turbid eyes also flashed with a sharp light. "You don't have any inner strength at all, so how can you pass Yihai's test? Tell me, how did you get here? Did you find some hidden path?" Before he finished speaking, a cold sword tip was already placed on Mengjio's neck. It turned out that the moment Mengjio made his move, Passing Rain, who was standing closest to the two, immediately reacted. She thought that Feng Bujue had triggered some flag and was attacked. She immediately took out the holy seal and stepped forward. In the blink of an eye, the cold light arrived. "Let go." Her words were concise and comprehensive, but they were powerful and resonating. Mengjio looked indifferent on the surface, but he was very surprised. He didn't expect the opponent to have such a move. If he had been prepared, he wouldn't have been held by the sword. Mengjio thought, "This girl is so young, but her movements are so fast. She might even be better than the falling plum sword, Lu Qingning, who is famous for her lightness skill. But this group of people doesn't look like they have internal energy. Their breathing is no different from ordinary people. Even the lowest disciple in the beggar clan who has practiced Taizu's long fist for a few years shouldn't be like this." Of course, he didn't know and didn't understand. As a player, Passing Rain didn't need to master any internal energy or lightness skill. She could reach this speed just by relying on her body. So it didn't matter how old she was or whether she had internal energy. Feng Bujue caught something from Mengjio's expression. He already knew, Senior. He was still smiling and his face was kind. "If you have something to say, let me go first." he said, and gave Passing Rain a look. The latter hesitated for 2 seconds, and then moved the sword away. This is interesting. The way Meng Jiu looked at Feng Bujue had already changed. Feng Bujue's smile, in the eyes of the Beggar King, became a smile that hid a knife. It seems that this old beggar misunderstood. Meng Jiu let go of Feng Bujue's hand. He seemed to inadvertently sit up and then said, "It's not that you don't have internal energy, it's just that you hid it well." Feng Bujue was very talented in observing and remembering things. All of the others' subtle movements couldn't escape his eyes. Well said, Senior, although I don't know you, but," he said, and consciously looked down. At that moment, Meng Jiu had changed from his original sitting posture to a cross-legged posture. Feng Bujue purposely used his gaze to point out the truth and said, "I have heard that in the martial arts of the Beggar clan, the lower body kung fu is based on the strengths of the various clans." He looked at Meng Jiu's face. "Senior, you call yourself an old beggar, and your tone is not ashamed, but proud. Plus, your hair is elegant and your clothes are free and easy. In my humble opinion, even if you are not the leader of the Beggar clan, you are still an elder." Although Meng Jiu didn't completely understand Feng Bujue's words, he still looked at his brother Jiu with an expression that said, "Although I don't understand, I think it's awesome." He slowly put down the wine and meat in his hand, and saluted the young man in front of him. Master. I am the Beggar King Meng Jiu, the current leader of the Beggar clan. I've heard so much about you. Sorry for the disrespect." Feng Bujue replied shamelessly. Even an idiot would know that he had never heard of this name before, or else he would have recognized him long ago. How was he disrespectful? Meng Jiu couldn't get angry. Just now, he had indeed underestimated the other party and offended him first. Moreover, every word Feng Bujue said, at least on the surface, sounded polite. At most, it was mockery, but there were no vulgarities. At this moment, Meng Jiu had already regarded the other as a powerful character. He mainly based on 2 points. First, since the boy in front of him could see that he was preparing to use his martial arts to fight the enemy from his small movement of changing his sitting posture, then he must know martial arts, and must be a master of superior martial arts. Second, although the female swordsman's skills could only be considered as first class, at her age, to have this kind of martial arts, if she was not a master of the innate level, then she must have practiced a profound heart sutra. However, she had to listen to the orders of the leader. This proved that this man by the name of Feng Bujue was at least a top expert, or perhaps he was her husband. "I've misspoken earlier," Meng Jiu said. This time, it was Feng Bujue who interrupted him. "Hey, what are you talking about?" He waved his hand and said, "It's my fault for being ignorant. How can I blame you?" Laughing Soul, who was standing several meters away, leaned close to Xiao Tan and whispered into his ear, "Our master sure is thick-skinned." He didn't say a single word from beginning to end, and his expression was so natural, Xiao Tan's lips twitched. You can see how thick-skinned he is from this kind of situation? That's because you don't know Brother Jiu well enough. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation." Chapter 197. The teammates stood there, watching Feng Bujue talk nonsense with the leader of the Beggar clan. Based on what Meng Jiu said, the reason he was guarding the entrance of the village was to point out the way for the martial artists who had just entered the village. At the same time, he was also there to investigate the background of the various people. As a member of the Beggar clan, naturally, he could communicate with most of the people in the martial world. No matter the background, they had to give the old beggar some face. Meng Jiu told Feng Bujue about the rules of the small and main road. After hearing that, Feng Bujue's first reaction was to ask, "Based on what you said, there are no villains in Chonglin town today. Everyone is from the righteous sects and famous martial artists?" The old beggar laughed instantly. Are those from the righteous sects all good people? He asked in return. Are those famous people actually good people behind the scenes? Feng Bujue had a smile on his face. Thank you for your advice. Actually, he just wanted Mengjiu to make himself clear. With Feng Bujue's personality, how could he believe that these people were all good people? Even this Mengjiu before him, he did not fully trust him. The other important part of their conversation was Mengjiu's introduction of the current situation in Changlin town. In other words, on the surface, there was a storm brewing, but in the dark everyone was in a state of fear. The conversation with the NPC that provided the plot introduction lasted for 20 minutes. Feng Bujue had gotten almost all the information that he could get from the NPC. After he finished listening to the description, he thanked the senior and led his teammates into the town. After they left the old beggar's site, Xiao Tan sidled up to him. Brother Bujue, did you hear that? Things are not looking good. Which part are you referring to? Feng Bujue asked. Of course, it's the part where people go missing every night, Xiao Tan answered. Even though Mengjiu said seriously that this is caused by ghosts. Feng Bujue smiled. But from how I see it, only you will believe that. Laughing Soul also smiled at Xiao Tan. Even the other NPCs in this scenario will not believe that. The old beggar is obviously just trying to scare us. I'm afraid even he does not believe his own words. How so? Xiao Tan asked. Laughing Soul replied, Isn't that obvious? If this Mengjiu really believed in ghosts, why would he stay on the street every night? At least find a roof to hide in, don't you think so? Mengjiu, Feng Bujue said, people disappear every night, at least 7 or 8 people, at most 10 people. I believe 90% of those who disappeared were killed by people or killed each other. He paused for a moment. Perhaps only 1 or 2 of them encountered some kind of supernatural thing. Laughing Soul added, Furthermore, the people from the martial world know this very well, but no one will point out this so-called ghost rumor. Xiao Tan nodded like he understood. That way, they can use the ghost rumor as a cover to kill other people in the future? Feng Bujue snapped his fingers. Correct. Atobi-sama then said, But why would these people do something like that? They have already arrived at Changlin town. Is it because they want to be in the front row when the duel starts? Is that why they have been using these few days to find a chance to kill the other audience members? Sigh. You don't understand the business of the martial world. Feng Bujue said with sincerity, like he knew this very well. Fame and wealth are human desires. Love and hatred are all caused by that. The Jianghu was a huge vat that embodied all of this in the most incisive and vivid manner. If a group of people from the martial world is placed in a specific and suitable environment, their human nature will be exposed. He looked around the dark and quiet village. Normally, there will be people that you can't stand. Perhaps you are jealous of them, or perhaps they have offended you before, or perhaps you know about the dirty things they have done in the dark, or perhaps they know about the dirty things you have done in the dark. But due to their identity or the other's identity, due to the rules of the martial world, ethics, and so on, it is impossible for them to do anything outside. He smiled. Look at how perfect Changlin town is. You can say that no one cares about anything. Heaven, earth, and government. Once night falls, you can sneak out to kill those people that you have been holding back for so long and push the blame to the ghost that no one knows exists. Isn't it good that everyone is doing this with a tacit understanding that no one will expose the other? I say, you sure have a dark view of the human heart. Atobi-sama listened to Feng Bujue's vivid description, and he could not help but shrunk his neck back. Kid, you come from a good family, right? Feng Bujue looked at him with a smile. How did you know? Atobi-sama asked in return. Ha. Feng Bujue scratched his chin. Names are so hard to come up with. The 3 of them are the kind of friends who, Even though they bully you in public, when you run into trouble, they will rush to help you. Let me guess, they are brothers that I made when I was in school. Hey, you can tell something like that? Atobi-sama asked in shock. Fong Bujue patted Atobi-sama on his shoulder and sighed. So you don't understand the wickedness of the human heart. He then turned to look at Xiao Tan. Xiao Tan smiled but did not say anything. He looked like he had been through this before. When you start working for someone else and interact with more people in society, you will know how many B** stars there are in the world and how B** stars can be, Fong Bujue said. While they were talking, a sudden change happened. In a small alley in front of them, a figure suddenly flashed out. It was a scholar in green, about 30 years old, with a handsome appearance, elegant and refined. For a woman who had just stepped into the world, when she saw this face, her heart would burn, and her cheeks would turn red. However, at that moment, the handsome man looked rather haggard. It was clear that he was heavily injured. His left shoulder was dyed red by fresh blood. When he ran, he not only staggered, but his breathing was also messed up. Under the moonlight, his pale face and fearful expression looked particularly pitiful. When he reached the street, he just had time to lift his head to look at Fong Bujue's group. When he opened his mouth to speak, his body suddenly bent sideways like he had been hit by a truck. His whole body flew out and slammed into a wall by the side of the road. In just a few breaths, he died. Fong Bujue raised his hand to signal for his teammates to stay back. He hurried forward to take a closer look at the body. Once he saw the body, he knew that the strange movement of the man being flung to the side was because he had been hit by more than 10 nail-like hidden weapons. It was as if he had been shot by a shotgun, and the force of the hidden weapons had sent him flying. At that moment, Fong Bujue was about to raise his head to look in the direction of the hidden weapons when he was attacked as well. Chapter 198. The person who threw the hidden weapon was called Si Yanran. She was the wife of the famous Thousand Dawn Spire's owner, Gong Sun Qian. The man she had just killed was her lover, and also a disciple of Thousand Dawn Spire. Si Yanran was 20 years old when she was first in the martial arts world with her unique dart. When she was 23, she met and married the owner of Thousand Dawn Spire, who was over 50 years old. In the blink of an eye, 10 years had passed. What had happened in the past 10 years? There was no need to go into detail. To sum it all up, a pair blossom beats a begonia was enough. The dead scholar in green was called Wang Ao. He was 24 years old. 3 years ago, he had joined Thousand Dawn Spire. Because he was handsome, he was chosen by his master's wife and was taken in as her last disciple. Since then, the two of them had started an illicit relationship. However, this Wang Ao was definitely not just a gigolo. He also had his own ambitions. When he first joined Thousand Dawn Spire, he had his eyes on Thousand Dawn Spire's ultimate skill, Thousand Dawn Magic. With his relationship with his master's wife, he had more confidence. About a year later, Wang Ao felt that the time was right. He started to beat around the bush, trying to get Si Yanran to steal the manual of Thousand Dawn Magic or give it to him. Si Yanran was not stupid. Although Gong Sun Qian knew nothing about her affair, he was not so stupid that he did not know that the secret manual of the sect had been touched. So, she did not dare to do such a thing. On the other hand, Wang Ao kept mentioning this matter. In the end, it turned into a threatening attitude. So, Si Yanran wanted to kill him. This time, the two swordsmen were going to have a sword fight in Chonglin. As one of the most powerful sects in the martial arts world, Thousand Dawn Spire naturally would not miss out on this good show. As the master's wife and last disciple, they naturally followed the owner into the town. So, that was the reason for the previous scene. Just as Fong Bujue had said, in this small town, if he killed 1 or 2 people in the middle of the night, the sky would not care, and no one would care. As long as the body was cleaned up after the murder, and no one could tell who the murderer was from the wounds, everything would be fine. That was what Si Yenran had planned. She pretended to ask Wang Ao out for a date at night, but in reality, she wanted to kill him. What he didn't know was that the cunning Wang Ao had long noticed that something was amiss and had taken precautions. Just as she was about to attack, the other party immediately fled. However, Si Yenran's martial arts were much better than Wang Ao's, and the latter was unable to escape in the end. However, before he died, he happened to appear in front of Feng Bujue and the others. Just now, when Feng Bujue came forward to look at the corpse, Si Yenran had already cursed in her heart. There were many people in Jianghu who recognized her dart. Now that there was a witness, a murder weapon, and a corpse, the murder would definitely be exposed. Once this was exposed, the adultery would also be exposed. At that moment, Si Yenran's mind was in for a penny, in for a pound. In any case, these people don't seem to have any martial arts skills, so I might as well kill them all. You can only count yourselves unlucky. Hum, hum, hum. A few strange noises echoed around Feng Bujue. The darts that suddenly appeared in midair were blocked by an invisible barrier when they were about to hit Feng Bujue's body. If one looked closer, they would see that the surface of Feng Bujue's body was rippling due to the darts. This was obviously the buffer effect of the echo armor coming into play again. As mentioned before, when facing high-speed, multi-point darts, the sound barrier had a very obvious defensive effect. The darts at that moment fulfilled these two conditions. As for the power, even K3 Red Iron's close-range darts were blocked by the sound barrier. This long-distance darts were naturally nothing to worry about. Si Yenran did not expect something like this to happen, and she had no idea how Feng Bujue had managed to block the darts that she had thrown. Feng Bujue was relieved. If the opponent used close-range combat to attack him, he would have lost a lot of life points. Thankfully, the opponent chose to attack with darts, so he was not injured at all. Between this attack and defense, the situation had already changed. Si Yenran thought that someone like Feng Bujue, who had no internal energy, would definitely die after being hit by the darts. She wanted to silence him, so as she threw the darts, she rushed out of the alley and prepared to deal with the other four people. Who would have thought that after the kid was hit by her dart, he would stand there unscathed. Furthermore, a unique weapon that she had never seen before appeared in his hand like a magic trick. It was actually a wrench. She had to be on guard against all of this. On Feng Bujue's side, he instinctively took out his weapon and looked up. What entered his eyes was a woman. She was dressed in white, with a light gray mink fur jacket over her shoulders and a silver ribbon around her waist. Although this woman could not be considered a peerless beauty, her charming face and figure could be considered a great beauty. The fact that she was in her 30s made her look even more graceful and charming. "Lady, let's talk this out." Feng Bujue basically understood the reason behind the woman's attack in these few seconds. He said cleverly, "I don't know you." He pointed at the body on the ground. "I don't know him either." He cautiously maintained a certain distance from Si Yenran. "What happened earlier has nothing to do with me." Seeing the woman stop moving like she did not dare move forward, his heart relaxed. "My friends and I can pretend we didn't see anything and leave quietly. You can do whatever you want with this body." Si Yenran already had the intention to kill, so she would not be swayed by a few words. She scoffed. "Humph, don't you think it's too late to say that? You've already seen my face." Her eyes moved to Wang Ao's body. "You've seen his face, and that's enough." She was not wrong. She had no reason to believe that these strangers would keep what happened earlier a secret. If they did, then it meant that this secret would become a bargaining chip. Then, there's no other way. When Feng Bujue said that, he turned his face slightly and raised his voice. Obviously, he was warning his teammates and was ready to make his move. There was a flash of red light, and a powerful energy exploded around Feng Bujue. He was cautious of the power of the NPCs in this scenario, so he did not dare be careless. Therefore, he activated Body Enhancement's spell at the start of the battle. On Si Yanran's side, she was even more nervous than Feng Bujue. At first glance, the man did not seem to have any internal energy, but the invisible force that deflected the dart through the air was something that only an expert with powerful internal energy could do. At this moment, the red visible chi was a cultivation method that she had never seen before. At this point, Si Yanran did not have the time to think anymore. She wanted to kill the man. Since the man before her had some tricks up his sleeve, she would use her full power and see if he could survive. She activated her internal energy, bent her knees slightly, and lashed out with her wrist. This time, only one of the darts flew at Feng Bujue, but it was incredibly powerful. It tore through the air like a whistle, and it was aimed at Feng Bujue's throat. Chapter 199. Since she was young, Si Yanran had been practicing her family's secret technique for hidden weapons. Her family had a long history. 10 years ago, she had married Gong Sun Qian, who was old enough to be her father. Firstly, it was because of her status in Jianghu. Secondly, it was because of her wealth. Thirdly, it was because of the secret techniques of Thousand Dawn Spire. In the past 10 years, Si Yanran had not only practiced her family's secret technique to perfection, but she had also merged Thousand Dawn Spire's secret technique with her own internal energy. Although her current martial arts cultivation was still inferior to the sect masters of those large sects, if she were to face the sect masters of second or third-rate sects, such as the Ocean Sand sect or the Azure Sea Sword sect, she would have a 90% chance of winning. Without a doubt, she was one of the top masters. And Feng Bujue, who was under the effect of Body Enhancement spell, was definitely at the level of a top master in terms of speed. Of course, he did not rely on Qigong or internal energy. Instead, he relied on the attributes given to him by the game. Even though his dynamic vision, reaction speed, and movement speed could keep up with Si Yanran's, in terms of fighting skills and experience, he was still far from her. Faced with this attack, if it was a real martial arts master, he would be able to dodge the dart and prepare a follow-up attack, or even turn the tables. But Feng Bujue, other than dodging, could not do anything else. He still needed to test his opponent before he could decide on his next move. It could be said that this was the magical part of the setting of martial arts. For example, an opponent like K3 Red Iron was strong, but that strength was all on the surface. It was a combination of strength, speed, energy, special characteristics, skills, and other factors. But in the world of Eastern wuxia, the standard to measure the strength of a master was vague and uncertain. The so-called first-rate, quasi-first-rate, innate, peerless, and so on were all very broad terms. The rankings in the armament manual were also relative. No one could say for sure that the person ranked at the top would definitely win against the person ranked at the bottom. Brilliant moves could allow a person who was at a disadvantage to defeat an opponent who was much stronger than him. Profound inner strength could allow a frail old man to break stone with his bare hands. Li Xuanwan's flying dagger, Lu Xiaofeng's fingers, Chu Liuxiang's qigong, and so on and so forth. Nobody would care about exactly how much strength, exactly how fast, this kind of question. That kind of reserved and romantic characteristic of the East was where the wuxia world's charm lay. After all, Feng Bujue had never fought with an NPC who used martial arts before. What Si Yanran would do in the next second, and what she could do, he had no way of predicting. Therefore, he could only act cautiously and try to gain the upper hand after making a move. His thoughts weren't wrong. Si Yanran's previous move was a single move with 2 variations. Regardless of whether the opponent dodged or blocked, there would always be a follow-up move. If Feng Bujue took the risk, it would be even more dangerous. He saw a white shadow flash by, Si Yanran's finger holding the dart. Her next move had already arrived. Don't be fooled by the fact that she was a woman and used a small weapon. Her martial arts were both firm and fierce, and when she made a move, there was a faint sound of wind and thunder. Another 3 shockingly powerful darts were shot out. The attack point was straight down Feng Bujue's throat, respectively aiming at the Tian-Tu, Zhigung, and Shanzhong acupoints on his chest. Xi Yanran's next move was very unexpected. Looking at the way she threw the darts, it was absolutely impossible to guess where she was aiming at. If it were someone who had practiced martial arts for many years, after dodging the first dart, based on experience and deduction, they would definitely think that Xi Yanran's next move was aimed at the lower half of the body or at the lower half of the body. If they really thought that, they would have fallen into a trap. As long as they moved half a minute in advance, the following 3 darts would be almost unavoidable. But Feng Bujue didn't think so much. If a fight between martial arts masters was compared to a game of chess, then at this moment, Xi Yanran's half of the chessboard was filled with chess pieces, while Feng Bujue's half was filled with chess pieces. If you use aerial cannon, I will let the animals bite you. If you charge at the car, I will let the animals bite you. If you jump on the horse, I will send the animals to bite you. If you jump on the horse, I will send the animals to bite you. How many moves you can calculate is your own business. I don't have the concept of chess. Therefore, Feng Bujue once again did something that eluded the man. His expression was focused, but he didn't make the slightest move in advance. It was only when the dart completely left Xi Yanran's hand that he began to react and once again dodged. Although it was dangerous, he still didn't suffer any injuries. Xi Yanran was more and more surprised by Feng Bujue's strength. She had never met anyone who could react like this in their first fight. All the martial arts masters she had faced before, when faced with this move, would move in advance. But some people's martial arts were very high. Even if they found out, they still had a way to remedy it. But Feng Bujue's way of dealing with it was more like someone who didn't know martial arts. But he had the speed to dodge the attack at the last moment. Doubt in the heart, movement will be slow. Although Xi Yanran's attack didn't stop, but her decisiveness was gone. At this moment, she was thinking in her heart, if this brat can take 20 moves from me, it's hard to say who will win. His few companions seem to be low-level characters, but if they are all like this brat, of course, thinking was just thinking, she still had to fight. After throwing the dart, Xi Yanran's figure was already in front of Feng Bujue. Taking advantage of the fact that her opponent had not yet stabilized his footing, she activated her internal strength and struck out with her palm. This move, soft wind permeating clouds, seemed to be no different from a normal palm technique, but in fact there was a hidden mystery. A viscous internal strength was wrapped around her palm. As long as her opponent used his internal strength and raised his palm to meet it, Xi Yanran's hidden strength would seep into his body and enter his dantian. At this time, it would be impossible for her opponent to use his internal strength and withdraw his hand. If the opponent's internal strength was weak, then his palm would be tightly stuck and his dantian would be as hot as boiling water. If it was light, then his internal strength would be wasted, and if it was heavy, then he would die on the spot. Xi Yanran used this move because she couldn't see any signs of internal strength in Feng Bujue's body, so she wanted to test it out. If this brat's previous actions were all a fluke, then this palm strike would definitely kill him. But if this brat was using a unique technique to hide his internal energy, then this palm strike would be able to roughly determine the level of his internal energy. But the development of the situation was, in an instant, a golden shadow burst forth. Xi Yanran's palm actually hit an invisible barrier the size of a door. This defensive technique was undeniably the special effect of Death Poker, the shield card. When Xi Yanran approached, Feng Bujue already knew that things were not going well. He thought to himself, I can dodge and block long-distance attacks, but this group of martial arts experts is no joke. Earlier, that old fart Yi Hai blocked my skill with his bare hands, and I lost 30% of my life points. Now that this woman has taken the initiative to attack me, how can I use my body to block her attacks? Therefore, Feng Bujue instantly took out his sorcery weapon and used its special effect without hesitation. The few exchanges between him and Si Yanran were as fast as lightning. In total, it only took about 10 seconds. By then, the other teammates had arrived to help. The first to arrive was not Xiao Tan, who was known for his speed, nor was it Passing Rain, who was the best in the group, but Atobi-sama. Once he saw that there was a battle, he was excited. At the end of the day, he was the highest-leveled player in the group and a professional player. How could he allow himself to be mocked by Feng Bujue? He had to show off his skills and let his teammates see his strength. Atobi instantly used the signature skill of his title, Flashy Ambush, Flash Impact. Name: Flash Impact. Special Ability Type: Active Consumption, 300 Stamina Points. Effect: Morph into a ray of light and attack the target at high speed, unleashing a powerful slash. After the skill ends, appear 2 meters behind the target with your back facing the target. Cooldown of 5 minutes. Must be equipped with a sharp weapon. Can be activated within 2 to 20 meters of the target, but cannot pass through obvious obstacles. Remark: if you run into an enemy who is much weaker than you and want to use a cool and clean method to take them down, this is the skill you need. By the way, Atobi-sama's weapon was a large fan about 65 centimeters long. It was made of steel, and when it was opened, the edge of the fan was incredibly sharp. In the Jianghu of this scenario, not many people would be able to wield this weapon. This weapon, combined with Atobi-sama's title skill, was like adding wings to a tiger. Normally, if he were to fight with this thing, his speed would not increase at all. However, under the effect of sudden charge, as long as he could lift something, he would be able to quickly close in on his target and slash at it. On the other hand, Si Yanran was confused by Feng Bujue's inexplicable defense. Out of the corner of her eyes, she saw a flash of light beside her, and a human shadow rushed at her like a gust of wind. Her face paled, and in a hurry, she chose to jump away to evade. Who would have thought that her instinctive reaction was the best skill to deal with ambushes? The weakness of flash impact was that as long as the target jumped up in the 2 seconds before the attack, there was an 80% chance that the attack would miss. As expected, when Atobi-sama reached the spot where Si Yanran was standing, the skill effect disappeared. He did not hit anything and even stopped moving. At the same time, he heard the sound of wind behind him, and the 2 darts arrived. Si Yanran's battle rhythm had been messed up by these players. She had no idea how to fight this battle. With the mentality that she would fight wherever she went, she twisted her body and threw 2 darts at Atobi-sama's Ling Tai point on his back. It was a waste not to hit him. It was not like she would get pregnant if she tried. But to her surprise, with 2 clicks, they hit. Since Atobi-sama rushed over, he was between Feng Bujue and Si Yanran, so the latter could not block the darts even if he wanted to. Thankfully, as a professional player, Atobi-sama was not lacking in armor. The 2 clicks were not the sound of the darts piercing into his spine, but the sound of them hitting his armor. The 2 darts fell to the ground, and Atobi-sama staggered several steps and almost fell. Even though the darts did not penetrate his armor, he was not wearing the echo armor, so the impact of the darts still reached his body and caused him to lose 16% of his life points. After Si Yanran landed on the ground, she was even more puzzled. In her eyes, the players were all dressed like young warriors in ancient times. They were dressed in normal cotton clothes and did not look like they were wearing armor. However, the sound just now and the darts that bounced off seemed to have hit something hard, the highest level of Golden Bell Shield. Chi protection? Si Yanran thought. How is that possible? This kid looks so weak, so how strong can his physical skills be? Even if he has practiced Golden Bell Shield, he would need to grab the ground and gather his energy to take on my 2 darts. But he hasn't even gotten into the horse stance, so how can the darts not pierce his body? Thinking up to here, Si Yanran already had thoughts of retreating. If the 5 people in front of her were from the same sect, then no matter what kind of martial arts they used, her most proficient hidden weapons would be useless. If it was a close combat battle, then she would have to fight 1 against 5. How could she win? The problem was, at this point, even if she begged for mercy, they might not let her go. She could only blame herself for underestimating the enemy and being too harsh with her words. If he were to fight, he would probably die here. If he were to flee, the fact that he had killed Wang Ao would be exposed before the sun rose. Sooner or later, he would be dead, and he would also be labeled as an unfaithful lover. The more Si Yanran thought about it, the more despairing she became. Her face was ashen, and a fire burned in her heart. She bit on her lips lightly, and the thought of fighting for her life came into her mind. At that moment, a figure just so happened to arrive. It was none other than Wang Tongji, who was holding the dagger. In fact, Xiao Tan didn't think too much about it. He just decided to charge at the enemy first. After all, once he got close enough, he would attack. Unexpectedly, Si Yanran was so anxious that she didn't care about anything else. Facing the enemy closest to her, she gathered all the qi in her body and swung her fist. The fist flew towards Xiao Tan. Before it even came into contact, there was already a slight crackling sound in the air. This punch might not be as good as the one Si Yanran used before, but in terms of pure power, it was enough to send a player back to the login lobby. Xiao Tan's luck was pretty bad this time, but he still had the strength. At this critical moment, his eyes flashed with a suffocating calmness. Devil Bat Ghostly Shadow was immediately activated. Xiao Tan's body split into 2, and the 2 illusionary shadows flew past Si Yanran. Si Yanran's punch with all her strength had actually missed, and the wind from the punch had caused the ground in front of her to be filled with dust and sand. She stood where she was in shock. She slowly turned her head around to look at Xiao Tan, who appeared several meters behind her. She gasped internally, "What is it this time? Could it be the long-lost trap of snares?" While she was still in shock, the holy seal in Passing Rain's hand had already arrived, and it was aimed at Si Yanran's neck. "Wait!" This shout was like a sudden clap of thunder that rang out from a dark alley. At the same time, the blade that Passing Rain swung out was hit by a small stone. Even though this hit was not enough to make her lose life points, it made her arm go numb, and her movement slowed. Si Yanran recovered from her shock and hurriedly jumped back. The light of hope reappeared in her eyes. Even though she didn't know who was helping her in the dark, the situation before her had changed. Chapter 200. This shout of slow, and the flying stone changed the situation in an instant. Just as everyone was stunned by this sudden change, the person hiding in the shadows suddenly flew out. He appeared in the opposite direction from where the shout had come from. He didn't appear where Si Yanran and Passing Rain were fighting, but appeared about 10 feet behind Feng Bujue. This person was dressed in green, the same as Wang Ao's dead body on the ground. Because his movements were extremely fast and he intentionally dodged, even Feng Bujue, who was closest to him, couldn't see his face clearly. He only knew that this was a man with a square face. He was tall and strong, and his skills were extraordinary. Feng Bujue reacted and immediately turned around, wanting to meet the enemy's attack, but he didn't think that this uninvited guest's target wasn't him at all. He saw the person who rushed out roar like a tiger, and with a flip of his palm, he slammed it down on the corpse on the ground. This move had been brewing for a long time, and its power was astonishing. When it was released, it rumbled like thunder. Feng Bujue instantly understood this person's intention, but he was powerless to do anything. Wang Ao's corpse was shattered by this person's surging palm power, and the half of his body that was covered with darts immediately had his bones and tendons broken, and his organs spilled out. After the man did that, he immediately yelled at Si Yanran, "Let's go!" As he yelled, He waved his palm at the spot in front of Feng Bujue, forcing him to retreat. Si Yanran seemed to have realized something, and she already knew who this person was. She turned around and ran, while at the same time she threw out 10 darts to cover her retreat. This time, the darts flying over weren't very fast or powerful, but there were many of them and they covered a wide area. Passing Rain and Xiao Tan, who were closer to them, had to retreat or block. It was clear that Si Yanran was in a hurry to leave, so she focused all of her energy on activating her qigong, and threw out the darts to delay the pursuers. The man and Si Yanran ran in different directions, and the players had no way to chase after them. Facing the two's qigong, of the 5 players, only Feng Bujue had the ability to chase after them, and he had to maintain the buff of body enhancement spell, or else there was no way he could catch up to them. Even though Passing Rain was more skillful than Brother Ju, she did not have enough power to support her stats. To catch up to these two without the aid of any skill, she would need to wait until she reached level 25, and that was not possible now. "What's going on?" Xiao Tan asked. Before Feng Bujue could answer, laughing. "You still don't get it? We're going to be scapegoats." Xiao Tan was confused. Atobi-sama's expression was similar to his. "What do you mean? Isn't everything right before our eyes?" Feng Bujue deactivated the body enhancement spell and said, "Now that the body is unrecognizable, the two can say whatever they want about what happened here." He walked toward Wang Ao's body. From the woman's words, it's clear that she doesn't want others to know that she's the killer. And we just happened to witness the process of her killing. From her perspective, there were 2 choices. 1, she could have abandoned the body and escaped without showing herself. 2, she could have killed all of us. She chose the second choice, which means that the kung fu or weapon she used is very recognizable in the martial world. She thought that even if we didn't see the killer's face, once we saw the body, we would know who the killer was. Therefore, when she saw me approach, she made her move. "So, at the beginning, you said things like, 'I don't know you, and I don't know him, and you can do whatever you want with the body.'" Xiao Tan was enlightened. Feng Bujue nodded. "At the time, I already knew what she was thinking. I tried to solve it peacefully, but she obviously didn't believe us. Of course, that is human nature. If I was in her shoes and was seen by several strangers when I committed the crime, no matter how sincerely they swore that they would keep it a secret, I wouldn't have believed them. Because in the end, they would have used this to blackmail me. Honestly, if they hadn't blackmailed me, I would have felt uneasy." As Feng Bujue spoke, he squatted down beside the disgusting body. "The man who appeared later has probably been observing us for a long time already. He thought that he didn't need to do anything because the woman could kill all of us, so he didn't show himself. The martial artists in this scenario seem to be able to tell that we don't know kung fu or that we don't have internal energy through observation. I believe the man and woman were no exception." He used the wrench to poke at the dart in the flesh and brought it closer to his eyes. "But in reality, our fighting ability was far beyond their estimation. But since things had reached this stage, the woman had no choice but to hold on until the end. Therefore, when the man saw that things weren't going his way, he came up with a plan. Feng Bujue started to look for the side of the body that was more intact. He tried to find something on the body. To destroy the body. He used a praising tone. Now that the body is in this state, they can say that it was us who killed this man, and he and the woman just happened to arrive and get into a fight with us. That's why the hidden weapons were scattered around the area." He scoffed. "Humph. Before the man charged out, he had been observing for a long time, and he had come up with a plan. He saved the woman at the last moment, and at the same time, he purposely used the sound to confuse us. Then, he suddenly appeared and took down the body that was covered in hidden weapons. If the body was intact, there would be a difference between the hidden weapons that flew in and the ones that stuck in after death, and the fatal wound would have been obvious. But now, even if we take out a hidden weapon stuck in the flesh, it won't prove anything. In this state, it doesn't matter if the man was killed by some kind of kung fu or was bitten to death by a wild animal. Doesn't that mean we'll have to take the blame? Atobi-sama asked. It doesn't matter. Fong Bujue replied. He couldn't find anything on the body, so he shrugged and stood up. This may be a blessing in disguise. What do you mean by that? Xiao Tan asked. Then, Passing Rain said, You're trying to bluff, right? Clever. Fong Bujue winked at her with a smile. Laughing Soul added, That is indeed a good idea. Atobi-sama had a confused expression on his face. The way you guys communicate is too weird. What are you talking about all of a sudden? Fong Bujue turned to look at him and Xiao Tan. Ha! You'll understand tomorrow. Chapter 201. After dealing with this encounter, the five did not continue to move toward the center of town but turned into a nearby alley. After walking for a while, they found a random house and entered it. Chonglin Town was not that big, but it was still a town and not a small place. Or else, the fight earlier would have attracted a crowd of onlookers. After the town had been abandoned for many years, there were many straw huts around the town. They were empty and had nothing valuable. If one could tolerate the pests in the huts, it was not a bad idea to go in and hide behind a roof. According to the information provided by Mengjio, other than the disciples of the major sects who lived in the inns in the center of the town, the other wanderers of the Jianghu, or people from the second and third class sects could only find such houses near the inns. Of course, Mengjio and the other elders did not consider this problem. Beggars were used to sleeping on the street. As players, Fong Bujue and the rest could ignore basic needs like eating, drinking, and sleeping in the scenario. They only needed to pay attention to their stamina points and their ability to focus. There was about an hour left until dawn. Fong Bujue's plan was for them to hide for another 2 to 3 hours and wait until 7 a.m. before heading to the inn at the center of town. He made use of this time to allow his life points and stamina points to recover on their own. At the same time, he talked about the situation and countermeasures after dawn. Due to the high degree of freedom in this scenario, be it time, map, or mission, there were no restrictions on the players. Therefore, they did not need to worry about being judged as AFKing by the system, and they could focus on fixing themselves. Of course, Fong Bujue was very efficient. In half an hour, he had finished telling the players everything that he wanted to say. The next 2 hours turned into a game of words and Xiao Tan being pelted with snacks by Laughing Soul, while the players spent the 2 hours hiding in the dark. Si Yenran and the square-faced man did not stay idle. The two would meet up to discuss the details of the framing plan. They did know each other. Earlier, when Si Yenran caught a glimpse of the man, she recognized him as the second-in-command of Thousand Dawn Spire, Gong Sunli. Although this Gong Sunli also had the surname Gong Sun, he was not related to Gong Sun Qian at all. They just happened to have the same surname. Gong Sun Qian joined the sect 10 years earlier than Gong Sunli, and he was also 10 years older than Gong Sunli. Moreover, both of them were very talented in martial arts. They were outstanding talents among the disciples of the same generation. Thus, after a few decades, they became the top 2 figures of the Thousand Dawn Spire. In the Thousand Dawn Spire, Gong Sun Qian was the best in terms of martial arts. However, Gong Sunli's shrewdness was far beyond his senior brother. Take the matter between Si Yenran and Wang Ao as an example. Gong Sun Qian was kept in the dark, but Gong Sunli was very clear about it. The amazing thing about this person was that he knew, but he didn't say anything, and he could even pretend that he didn't know. He did not threaten anyone with this matter, nor did he interfere with the development of the situation. Gong Sunli's principle was to be on guard in secret. Therefore, he was always prepared when faced with unexpected situations. It was precisely this style of doing things that allowed him to turn the tide at such a critical moment. Gong suddenly helped Si Yanran not because he was close to this woman or because he had other intentions toward her. He was doing this purely to protect the reputation of the Thousand Dawn Spire. He knew very well that once the murder was exposed, the adultery would be exposed as well. If this had happened somewhere else, it would have been fine, but it happened here. Currently, Chonglin Town was even more crowded than the martial arts convention. If this scandal of the Thousand Dawn Spire was exposed, then no matter where they went, people would point at them and say things like, "The wife of the leader is having an affair with her disciple." How would the disciples of the Thousand Dawn Spire survive in the martial world? At this moment, there weren't many righteous and chivalrous people who could side with reason and not with their relatives. Under such circumstances, Gong suddenly wouldn't talk about the truth or morality anymore. He would just push all the blame to those outsiders. After all, from the looks of Feng Bujue's group, they were all in their 20s, and none of them were familiar faces. Even if they did know some kung fu, they were still new to the martial world. With his position as the second in command of the Thousand Dawn Spire and Si Yanran's position as the wife of the leader, if he wanted to frame these 5 people for Wang Ao's murder, wouldn't that be easy? That night, after Gong Sun Li and Si Yanran finished their discussion, they immediately went to find Gong Sun Qian. The two said that they accidentally saw Wang Ao going out in the middle of the night and felt that something was off, so they followed him. However, after following him for a while, they realized that Wang Ao was already dead in the middle of the street, and beside his body stood 5 mutants with strange kung fu. After the fight, they realized how powerful the mutants were. They were afraid that they would not be able to hold on against 5 mutants, so they could only run back to report this. Even though Gong Sun Qian felt that there were a few loopholes in the story, he did not think too much about it. He immediately led his disciples out of the inn and followed Si Yanran and Gong Sun Li's directions to the scene of the incident. As they expected, they found Wang Ao's broken body lying on the street. From the number of footprints and the number of darts scattered on the ground, there was indeed a fight that involved many people. However, with the situation they were in, they did not know where to find the 5 people. They could only collect the body and return to the inn to plan their next move. This group of people had mobilized a large force to enter and leave the inn. Naturally, they were noticed by many people. Before the sun rose, the news had spread. Almost all the factions and martial artists heard that Wang Ao of the Thousand Dawn Spire had been killed, and the killers seemed to be 5 mysterious masters that had not been heard of in the martial world. The next morning, at Chonglin Inn, the cooks and waiters in the inn were already busy before the sun rose. By then, buns after buns and pots of freshly brewed tea were already prepared. They were waiting for the guests to call for them. When did this inn in Chonglin Town reopen for business? Even the workers at the inn had no idea. In any case, in the middle of the 7th month, when people heard about the duel between Xie San and Yi Cheng and rushed to the town, the inn was already open for business. As long as the people of Jianghu inquired about the inn's history from the shop's staff, the response they received was that they didn't know anything. This was because the waiters at the inn did not know kung fu and did not know anything about the martial world. They were all normal citizens from the nearby towns. Someone gave them a sizable sum of money and told them that they only needed to work there for a month. After the 15th day of the 8th month, the inn would close, and they would go their separate ways. The owner of the inn did not appear often. He was a man about 40. He had a soft face, and his face was extremely pale 24 hours a day. In the morning, he looked like a ghost, and at night, he was nowhere to be seen. If he was told that he was the ghost of the town, perhaps people would believe it. After talking about the owner of the inn, it was time to talk about the guests of the inn in this scenario's wuxiao world. The strongest factions in the martial world were the One Family, 2 floors, 3 factions and 4 doors. There were 10 factions in total. The One Family was the Yi family of Xian. The second floor was Thousand Dawn Spire and Octagonal Spire. The 3 factions were Shaolin, Renwu, and Xiaoyao, and the 4 doors were Kaifeng Wuji, Western Jin Gang, Luoyang Gang of Justice, and Shuzhong Tang sect. Among these sects, the House of Yi was the most respected in the martial arts world. Their top experts were publicly acknowledged as the strongest in the martial world. Other than Yi Qing, who was known as the God of Swords, the 6 flowery blades at the manor were all top-notch experts. The falling plum blade, Lu Qingning, was one of the 6 experts. Of course, she had also disappeared last night. The second floor, Thousand Dawn Spire and Octagonal Spire, were the most influential factions. Both factions had a unique manual that was passed down from generation to generation. They were Thousand Dawn Kung Fu and Octagonal Mantra. Their leaders were also experts who were only second to Yi Qing. In the martial world, even if they were not in the top 10, they would not be in the top 20. Therefore, these 2 factions had many disciples, and the experts in the spire were not weak either. Then there were the 3 factions, Shaolin, Renwu, and Xiaoyao. They all worshipped Buddhism, Confucianism, and Taoism. Other than martial arts, they also taught ideology. The spirit of these 3 factions was to redeem people. Therefore, they had many disciples, and they did not care about talent when accepting disciples. In any case, the 3 factions had a long history, and there were many different types of martial arts. The disciples with low talent would learn the most basic martial arts, and those with high talent would learn more advanced martial arts. Taking the 72 skills of Shaolin as an example, it was already good enough for a person to master one in their lifetime. Since ancient times, the only person who had mastered all 72 skills was Master Bodhidharma. No one dared to compete with such a deity. The last 4 could be considered the weakest among the first-tier factions. However, the Limitless sect's Limitless Grand Technique, the Vajra sect's Dragon Elephant Prajna Technique, the Righteous sect's Heavenly Saber Technique, and the Tang sect's Poison sect's Consummate Technique were all unique and had their own strength. Under certain circumstances, even the martial arts of the Thousand Dawn Spire or the Octagon Spire might not be their match. For example, the Dragon Elephant Prajna skill, to quote from swordsman Jin Yong's setting in The Return of the Condor King, is the ultimate protective skill of Tantric Buddhism. It is split into 13 levels. The first level is very easy. Even the most foolish person can master it in 1 or 2 years. The second level is twice as deep as the first, and it will take 3 to 4 years. The third level is twice as deep as the second, and it will take 7 to 8 years. In this way, the further one goes, the harder it is to progress. After the 5th level, to master the next level, it will take more than 30 years of hard work. This skill, theoretically speaking, even for someone who was not that talented, as long as they kept progressing, they would be able to master the 13th level. Of course, that person would have to have a lifespan of more than 300 years. Looking at the actual situation, since ancient times, only Jinluan Fuang, that kind of peerless genius, was able to cultivate to the 10th level in his lifetime due to his painstaking cultivation and rapid progress. According to the Dragon Elephant Prajna skill, each palm strike had the power of 10 dragons and 10 elephants. Therefore, it was hard to tell the strength of Kung Fu. For some Kung Fu, you only needed to cut off one of your organs, and you would be able to reach a certain level quickly, but for some Kung Fu, even if you practiced it your whole life, you would not be that good if you were not talented enough. That was the situation of the first-tier factions, and Beggar's sect was only the leader of the second-tier factions in this world. Even though Meng Jiu's seniority was high, his Kung Fu was about the same as Yi Hai's. It was impossible for him to compete with Yi Qing or the 2 house masters. Even if he was matched up against the leaders of the 3 sects and 4 clans, Meng Jiu did not dare say he could win. The elders and core disciples of Beggar's sect were not as powerful as the elites of the first-tier factions. Perhaps people would ask, didn't the biggest sect in the world have something like the 18 dragons subduing palms? Indeed, Meng Jiu had learned the 18 dragon subduing palms before, but not everyone could reach Xiao Feng's level. At the end of the day, it was still a matter of the person. If Xiao Feng had practiced Prajna Palm since he was young and lived to 60, he would have been able to turn all the previous leaders of Beggar's sect into dust with one palm strike. Let's talk about the other second-tier sects, such as Dient Sang, Amei Huashan, Kongtong, and so on. Over the past few years, they did not have any particularly eye-catching talent. It was a bit like they were declining in their legacy, and inheriting their legacy in their decline. The rest were third-rate and unranked gangs, such as the Whale Gang, the Azure Sea Sword Sect, or the XX Escort Agency. You could say that these people were from the martial world, or you could say that they were salt smugglers, farmers, and security companies. In terms of martial arts, their sect leaders could only be considered average, but this Chong Lin Sword Symposium had attracted the attention of the world. Naturally, this group of people had come to participate. It was as if by participating in this, their sect would rise in status. In the future, they could even brag to others. Back then, when Yi Cheng and Xie San were fighting at Chong Lin Town, I was there. As for those stragglers who didn't belong to any sect, they weren't that many. So far, there were only 17 or 18 people who had successfully entered the town through the small road. Those who had entered through the main roads were on good terms with the major sections. They were famous heroes who had illustrious reputations. There were only 30 or so of them. On the 13th of August, the inn was fully occupied by the leaders and disciples of the 10 sections. Only a few lone travelers, who had arrived earlier, had a high status in Jianghu, and had high martial arts attainments, were able to occupy some rooms in the inn. The people from the second-tier and third-tier factions and other martial artists who arrived in 2s and 3s stayed in the abandoned houses around the inn. As long as there was a bamboo stick stuck in front of the door, it meant that the place had been occupied, and those that did not have one, please do as you wish. In any case, the town was ungoverned, so the rules were set. In conclusion, that was the current situation of Chong Lin Town. However, the two main characters of the duel, Yi Cheng and Xie San, had not appeared in town. Cold dew hung in the autumn sky, and the distant mountains were in sight. The autumn morning in a small town in the mountains gave people a very comfortable feeling. Every morning, the leaders of the various factions, including those who stayed outside the inn, would bring one or two of their most trusted disciples to find a table on the first floor of the inn to have tea and breakfast. They would chat among themselves. On the surface it was polite, but actually they were testing each other. And the topic that day was naturally the death of Thousand Dawn Spire's disciple, Wang Ao. Tower Master Gongsun, the sun hasn't risen yet. Why are you and your disciples making such a ruckus? The one who asked this question was a fat monk with an oily face. He was holding a wine jar early in the morning. He didn't sit at the table but leaned against the side of the stairs that led to the second floor of the inn, sitting directly on the ground. His face was red and he looked tipsy. His kasaya was open, and a string of prayer beads hung before his chest. Each of the beads was about the size of a fist. The monk's name was Lu San. Even though he was a Buddhist disciple, Lu San was not from Shaolin Temple. It was unclear which temple this monk came from, and he had learned a rather advanced fist technique, drunken Luohan, and that was how he made a name for himself in the martial world. Over the past decade, he had done many good deeds in the martial world, and he could be considered a hero. Humph! Monk Lu, did you hear it wrong because you were drunk? Gong Sun Qian scoffed. He did not admit or deny it. Everyone in the martial world knew that drunken monk Lu San was good at pretending to be drunk. Lu San could say whatever he wanted. As long as he acted drunk, he was not afraid of offending anyone. If the other party was angry, the monk would say that he was drunk and spouting nonsense. That way, both sides would be able to step down. Oh? Could it be that I was dreaming? That's not right. Why do I smell blood in my dream? Lu San put on an act and asked again. Si Yanran, who was sitting next to Gong Sun Qian, turned her head and replied in annoyance, Maybe your nose has also been damaged by the alcohol? Master Gong Sun, I also heard the commotion. A tall and thin man in his 40s or 50s interrupted with a smile. Did you bring your disciples to hunt in the middle of the night? Haha. The food you hunted was quite strong. This person was Octagonal Tavern Master Ji Tong. He had a grudge with Gong Sun Qian, so it was normal for him to be sarcastic. Gong Sun Qian did not bury Wang Ao's body last night. Instead, he ordered his disciples to wrap it in a straw mat and bring it back to the inn. Currently, the body was in a room that belonged to them and was guarded by 2 disciples. As for the smell, he had already treated it with a special medicine. It could temporarily suppress the smell for a day and a night. Ha ha! Master Ji's nose is really sharp. Gong Sun Qian was not to be outdone. He scolded and laughed at the same time. Beside him, Gong Sun Li, Si Yanran, and the other 2 disciples all laughed along, as if these words were very funny. Humph! Ji Tong slammed the table. You didn't wipe it clean and you're farting with your mouth? What did you say? Ha ha! Ji Tong laughed. Master Gong Sun, you didn't bury your disciple because you didn't find the murderer, right? Ha ha! I Ji Tong am quite knowledgeable. Why don't you let me take a look at the body so that you can find the murderer? Humph! I appreciate Master Ji's kindness. Gong Sun Qian snorted. It's not my first day out in the pugilistic world. I don't need your help. As the 2 of them engaged in a heated exchange of words, the sect leaders and martial artists of the other sects around them watched the commotion in silence. At this moment, a few figures appeared at the entrance of the inn. It was Feng Bujue and his teammate. They walked in from the main entrance. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.